Chapter 1109. Gu Xining didn't think that far. Maybe she was just joking with Li Xiang at the beginning. Her father's death was a big blow to him. She was in a bad mood, so she indulged herself like this. That night, she was grateful to Li Xiang's appearance. He helped her when she was most helpless. Besides, this man had the shadow of her father. How could she not have a good impression of him? Coupled with the previous factors, she directly pursued Li Xiang and had a relationship that didn't start and wouldn't end. But she didn't think about other things. Now, she began to worry. Her uncle was so powerful. She and her mother suspected that her father was killed by her uncle. He even dared to kill his own brother. What else did he not dare to do? Besides, he had the support of a big boss in Chengdu. What her uncle wanted was the control of the group, which was the shares in the hands of her mother and daughter. They had also asked for help from the outside, but who dared to help them at this time? Therefore, they were almost at their wits' end. Therefore, her uncle couldn't let anyone disrupt his plan. Anyone who suddenly appeared could be a stumbling block to him, and he had to get rid of them. So with Li Xiang, the next evening they got off work. Unexpectedly, Gu Xining didn't come to see Li Xiang. Li Xiang didn't think much about it. He happened to be busy. Today, he was going to pay back the money for a Ning's gambling addict father. This was also the last time a Ning helped his gambling addict father. Today, Li Xiang had made up his mind to help a Ning solve this trouble, so that he wouldn't pester her endlessly in the future. Therefore, Li Xiang didn't ask them to come to get the money. Instead, he went to them directly. The premise was that a Ning's father must be present. They agreed to meet in a tea house. Although there were many people drinking tea here, the most profitable place was the chess room inside. Many people lost a lot of money here. A Ning's father was one of them, because he borrowed money from usury after he lost. Li Xiang was stopped at the entrance of the tea house. This was not a place that anyone could enter. Those who could play cards here were gamblers and hoodlums. After Li Xiang revealed his identity, the two hoodlums took him upstairs. The inside of the tea house was filled with smoke, which made Li Xiang somewhat unable to adapt to. The two hoodlums were also sloppy, as if they were the number one in the world. Those who did not know would think that they had just won 5 million in the lottery. In fact, they were just some small hoodlums who ran errands for others. Not long after, the two hoodlums brought Li Xiang to the side hall. Li Xiang saw 7 or 8 hoodlums standing in the side hall and 2 or 3 sitting on the chairs chatting. It was obvious that they were the ones who had the say here. In any case, they didn't take Li Xiang seriously. "Did you bring the money?" A punk with dyed blonde hair, sitting on a chair, asked without raising his head. Li Xiang did not bother to talk to these gangsters. After all, they were not in the same world. He weighed the bag in his hand and shouted, "The money is here. Where are the people in Ninghai? Put the money down and you can get out." The blonde said without hesitation. As soon as the voice fell, the two hoodlums came over to grab the bag in Li Xiang's hand. The reason why Li Xiang had to come was that he had to make things clear face to face. Otherwise, those hoodlums would definitely pester him in the future. Moreover, he had already expected that this would happen. Who asked these hoodlums to not talk about integrity at all? Since they did not talk about integrity, then let's talk about fists. Li Xiang threw the bag at his feet and punched the face of the left hoodlum. Then he grabbed the shoulder of the right hoodlum and hit his abdomen with his knee. Li Xiang was extremely ruthless. He did not give them a chance to fight back. The two hoodlums instantly fell in front of Li Xiang. In the blink of an eye, Li Xiang directly suppressed everyone present. The blonde wanted to speak, but Li Xiang had already approached him. He did not know when he grabbed the teacup from the table next to him and directly smashed it on the blonde's head. The blonde instantly bled. Unfortunately, he did not even have a chance to speak. Li Xiang was very clear that he could not reason with these people. He had to talk about strength with them. Otherwise, they would not respect him at all. At this time, the other hoodlums present immediately wanted to take action. When could they allow outsiders to show off in their territory? How could they continue to live in the future? Therefore, they had to beat Li Xiang down first. At this time, the muscular man who was wearing a short-sleeved shirt and a big gold chain sitting in the middle said, "Wait." Only then did the other hoodlums stop. The blonde who had suffered a loss scolded and said, "Boss, kill him. Get out." The muscular man with the big gold chain directly scolded. Then he slowly walked in front of Li Xiang and said, "Brother, Are you from the underworld? Li Xiang did not expect that the other party would ask this. However, he was very smart and immediately responded, "Yes, I used to be in the underworld, but not anymore." "Who are you with?" The muscular man with the big gold chain continued to ask. Li Xiang snorted and said, "You'd better not know these things that you are not supposed to know. I'm here today to return the money and solve a small problem. If you give me face, then we will all be polite. If you don't give me face, then don't blame me for being rude. I hope you have the ability to keep me here." What he said was really pretentious. The muscular man with the big gold chain already believed that this brother in front of him was also a ruthless person in the underworld. Otherwise, how could he be so ruthless just now? In the past, the most powerful person in Chuanyu was Master Zhao. Since Master Zhao went into hiding, Chuanyu became independent. However, on the surface, everyone was polite. The real bosses did not have any conflicts with each other. After all, they had been following Master Zhao in the past. However, the muscular man with the big gold chain heard from his boss that since Master Zhao retired, many ruthless people who had followed Master Zhao in the past also went into hiding. Therefore, if you met a ruthless person who suddenly appeared in Chuanyu, don't try to show off. You should admit defeat when it was necessary and wait until you found out the details. Therefore, the muscular man with the big gold chain was so polite. "Listen to what you said. We want money, not life. It's not a small matter to kill people these days." The muscular man with the big gold chain said happily. Then he ordered his subordinates, "Go and bring Ninghai here." After that, he sat down with Li Xiang and obediently poured tea for him. He smiled and said, "How should I address you?" "Li Xiang," Li Xiang said straightforwardly. After all, if they really wanted to know, they would find out sooner or later. There was no need to lie to these people, which would save them trouble later. The muscular man with the big gold chain said, "Li Xiang, ideal good name. You can call me Jinju." Jinju. This name was very suitable for a muscular man. However, Li Xiang did not say much. At this time, Ning's father, Ning Hai, was brought over. Before this, he was still playing cards at the table. This middle-aged man, who looked sloppy, skinny, and smelly, was still cursing. "What are you doing? What are you doing? I'm playing a big card." "Big your ass. When did you win money?" The gangster who pushed Ning Hai scolded. Ning Hai was wearing a somewhat tattered short-sleeved shirt and trousers. He was holding a pair of blue slippers that he bought a long time ago. There was no flesh on his face. His eyes were sunken and looked very ugly. How could such a man give birth to such a beautiful woman like Ning? "Ning Hai, do you still recognize me?" Seeing Ning Hai coming over, Li Xiang slowly stood up and walked toward Ning Hai step by step. After fighting for 10 hours, Ning Hai was a little dizzy. He frowned and said, "I don't know you. Who are you?" Slap. Li Xiang didn't say anything. He just slapped Ning Hai's face with the back of his hand. This slap could be said to be ruthless. It directly caused Ning Hai's nose to bleed. It also scared the other people present. They didn't expect this man to really hit someone without saying a word. "Do you know me?" Li Xiang squinted his eyes and said. After that, he kicked Ning Hai's abdomen again. Ning Hai directly fell to the ground, crying and moaning. Although Ning Hai was more than 50 years old, Li Xiang did not show any mercy when he hit him. Who asked Ning Hai to eat other people's food without doing anything? He almost sold his daughter in gambling. Why should he be polite to him? Ning Hai did not dare to say anything. Li Xiang also did not show any mercy. He slapped Ning Hai's face again and said, "These 2 slaps are for Ning. I paid the last 100,000 yuan that you owe her. If you play cards in the future, the usury you owe has nothing to do with her. If you dare to find her again, you can rest assured that I will not let her help you. I will directly chop you and feed you to the dogs." After saying this, Li Xiang gave Ning Hai 2 more kicks. He should not be polite to this guy who did not learn from his mistakes. After getting up, Li Xiang looked at Jinju and the others and said, "This 100,000 yuan, I paid for him today. If you still let him continue to gamble, I have nothing to say. That's his business. But if you dare to ask his daughter for money again, then don't blame me for being impolite. Be careful that you have the life to earn money, but not the life to spend it. If you're not satisfied, you can come to me at any time. I will wait for you." When Li Xiang said these words, his body was really full of killing intent. Even Jin Zhu felt the breath of death. This feeling was similar to the feeling he had when he met a fierce person with his boss. That person had really killed a few people. Therefore, he was more and more convinced that Li Xiang was that kind of fierce person. At this time, the yellow-haired guy who was hit by Li Xiang's teacup at the beginning muttered, "Yo, do you really think that you were a big shot?" Li Xiang turned around subconsciously and glared at the yellow-haired guy. "What did you say?" The yellow-haired guy was startled. He had not recovered from the teacup just now and was suddenly threatened by Li Xiang. He replied with fear and trepidation, "I didn't say anything." However, Li Xiang was originally threatening the yellow-haired guy. Now he lacked a target to kill the chicken to warn the monkey. Who knew that the yellow-haired guy would be so reckless as to send himself to death? Therefore, Li Xiang still did not talk nonsense. He turned around and directly kicked the yellow-haired guy away. The yellow-haired guy fell heavily on the ground. This time, he really could not get up. After a series of actions, Li Xiang did not forget to give Ning Hai 2 more kicks, in case this old guy came back to gamble again. After finishing these things, Li Xiang immediately left. He didn't explain anything, and the others didn't dare to stop him. After all, their boss Jin Zhu didn't say anything, so he had to report to his boss about today's matter. Outside the tea house, Li Xiang let out a long sigh of relief. Today, he really forced himself to act tough. After acting tough, he directly ran away. Thinking about it, it was quite exciting. But why was he not nervous at all? This was what Li Xiang could not figure out. Thinking about it again, what was there to be nervous about? Forget it. He did not think about it anymore. Therefore, Li Xiang was ready to go home by bus. However, when Li Xiang just walked to the intersection, suddenly a Honda Odyssey blocked in front of him. Then, 3 men in black came down from the car and stopped him. Li Xiang's face changed slightly. What the hell? They found him so quickly? This speed was too fast. It seemed that there was going to be a fight today. It was just a fight. Anyway, his aunt was not here. Who was afraid of who? Li Xiang was already ready to fight. At this time, the 3 men in black had already walked in front of Li Xiang. The strong man in sunglasses in the middle said coldly, "Mr. Gu wants to see you." Mr. Gu? Li Xiang had never heard of him and did not know him. But his surname was Gu. Looking at the extravagance, could it be related to Gu Xining? Could it be Gu Xining's father? Chapter 11:10. Li Xiang didn't have many friends in Chengdu. Before he met Gu Xining, he didn't know any friends with the surname Gu, let alone Mr. Gu. How could a poor loser like him, who had no car or house, know a boss? Therefore, this so-called Mr. Gu must be related to Gu Xining. After all, they both had the surname Gu. Thinking of the fact that he just met Gu Xining's mother yesterday, this Mr. Gu today must be Gu Xining's father. But why didn't they meet together? Why did they meet separately? Could it be that Gu Xining's parents were divorced? This was very possible. There were many rich people who changed their hearts when they got rich. It didn't mean that men would become bad when they got rich. It was just that there were too many temptations in this society. How many men could resist them? Li Xiang, who had just pretended to be cool in the tea house, habitually pretended to be cool. What if I say no? Then don't blame us for being impolite, the brawny man wearing sunglasses said sternly. The other 2 brawny men dressed in black clothes rushed towards Li Xiang. If they really fought, Li Xiang might be their match. But after all, it was Gu Xining's father who wanted to see him. There was no need for him to fight like this. At most, he could tell Gu Xining's father that no one knew what his daughter was thinking and he should go home and ask his daughter. So Li Xiang could only say, "Then let's go." Hearing Li Xiang say let's go, the 3 strong men in black seemed to be a little disappointed because they didn't fight. Li Xiang really didn't know what they were thinking. In the end, they had to push Li Xiang to the car and leave. Li Xiang was also a little puzzled. Gu Xining's mother wanted to see him, or at least she had informed him through Gu Xining. Moreover, the atmosphere last night seemed to be very harmonious, so harmonious that he was a little surprised. Logically speaking, with Gu Xining's family background, if her mother knew about his background, she would never allow him to interact with Gu Xining. But Gu Xining's mother didn't say anything. It seemed that she was very supportive of this matter and was willing to help him find a better job. Now, Gu Xining's father wanted to see him, but he didn't go through Gu Xining. Instead, he showed up in such a sudden way. It was obvious that his father didn't agree to Gu Xining being with him. Then he would have a reason to get rid of Gu Xining. If the husband and wife had different opinions, they would most likely divorce. Along the way, Li Xiang had been thinking about this matter. No wonder Gu Xining acted so strangely. It turned out that she lived in such a family environment. Sure enough, the influence of family on children was really great. The Honda Odyssey drove along Renmin South Road and went straight to Tianfu Avenue. They had been driving for half an hour and still hadn't reached the destination. Li Xiang began to doubt the identity of these people. Could they be the enemies that his aunt mentioned? It was not impossible. Brother, how much longer do we have to go? Li Xiang finally could not help but ask. He still had to go to work in the afternoon. He reckoned that he would have to ask for leave today. The brawny man in sunglasses replied, "We'll be there soon. Don't disturb my work tonight." Li Xiang continued to mutter. He didn't know if he could make it to the bar in time. This time, the brawny men didn't answer Li Xiang's question, as if it had nothing to do with them whether Li Xiang went to work or not. Their task today was to bring Li Xiang to the bar. About a few minutes later, the Honda Odyssey finally arrived at the destination of this trip, Chengdu Lushan International Community, which was also the most popular villa area in Chengdu at present. Along the Lushan International Country Golf Course, it was surrounded by more than 10 villa areas. It could be considered as the richest rich area in Tianfu New District. Any random villa would cost tens of millions, not to mention those that easily cost hundreds of millions. However, Li Xiang didn't know any of these because he had never seen such a scene. Just by looking at the rows of villas, Li Xiang knew that this place was not simple. Ordinary people definitely couldn't afford to live here. Those who could live here were either rich or noble. Sometimes Li Xiang thought that although there were tens of millions of people in this city, there were also many rich people. Why wasn't he one of them? It was still very bright. After entering the community, Li Xiang only cared about the scenery outside the window. There were magnificent villas everywhere, golf courses, artificial lakes, and so on. It was really enjoyable to live in such a place. How good it would be if he could live here in the future. The only drawback was that it was too far from the city. Maybe rich people liked quiet places, and who knew how many mansions they had in the city. These were not what Li Xiang should think about. This was not what Li Xiang should be thinking about. Just as his mind was wandering, the Honda Odyssey stopped on a golf course. 3 big men in black took him down, as if they were taking a prisoner. This made Li Xiang somewhat uncomfortable. He did not like to have his freedom restricted. After getting out of the car, the 3 big men took him to the golf course. From afar, he saw a group of people playing golf around a middle-aged man. There were also several strong men standing nearby. These should be the middle-aged man's bodyguards. And that middle-aged man was no doubt Gu Xining's father. 2 big men kept him here. One of them ran to report to Gu Xining's father. It seemed that he was not qualified to meet Gu Xining's father directly. At this time, Gu Xining's father subconsciously turned his head to look in this direction, then gave a few orders and walked to the side under a parasol. Not long after, Li Xiang was brought to the other side. Gu Xining's father kept his back to Li Xiang. Li Xiang didn't have a chance to observe carefully to figure out what Gu Xining's father meant. But now he began to guess the Gu family's power. With such a luxurious mansion and beautiful bodyguards, it was obvious that they were not ordinary rich people. Finally, Li Xiang stood in front of Gu Xining's father. Now he could finally observe this middle-aged man. He had a small square face, big eyes, a high-nosed bridge, thick hair, and not too many wrinkles on his face. It seemed that he had taken good care of himself. He was much younger than his actual age, about the same age as Gu Xining's mother. He was wearing a polo shirt, khaki pants, sneakers, a golden Rolex on his wrist, a ruby gold ring on his finger, and was rubbing the gold ring with his little finger. At the same time, he was also looking at Li Xiang. "Are you Li Xiang?" "Sit down," the middle-aged man said calmly. Li Xiang sat down calmly. He didn't take the middle-aged man seriously because of his identity. "Even if you're Gu Xining's father, so what? I'm not asking you to do anything for me. It's your daughter who is pestering me now." Uncle, what can I do for you? Li Xiang asked with a smile. After all, the middle-aged man was an elder, and he should be polite. The middle-aged man said in a deep voice, "Do you know who I am?" Li Xiang wanted to say that of course he knew, but he didn't know why he came here with them. Was he so bored? But in order to keep a low profile, Li Xiang could only say, "I really don't know about this. May I know who you are?" The middle-aged man didn't know whether the man in front of him, who was 30 years old but had achieved nothing, was deliberately mystifying. He had been suspicious about the identity of the man in front of him, because except for the basic information, it seemed that he couldn't find other details at all, which made him full of doubts. "I'm Gu Xining's uncle, Gu Jinni." The middle-aged man, who was Gu Xining's uncle, Gu Jinni, finally revealed the mystery and said slowly. Then he smiled and looked at Li Xiang's reaction. Surprisingly, when Gu Jinni saw Li Xiang, he was not as surprised as Gu Xining's mother, who felt that Li Xiang was very similar to Gu Xining's father. Maybe Gu Jinni didn't feel that way. Gu Xining's uncle, not Gu Xining's father? Then you should have told me earlier. I thought you were Gu Xining's father, and I attached so much importance to you. By the way, why did Gu Xining's uncle, not Gu Xining's father, want to see him? Did Gu Xining's father ask his uncle to see him, or did Gu Xining's uncle want to see him himself? Li Xiang couldn't move. However, Li Xiang thought that it was good to keep a low profile. If he had said that he didn't know about it, he would have been slapped in the face. "Uncle, what can I do for you?" After Li Xiang came to his senses, he pretended to be calm and asked. Gu Jinni crossed his legs and didn't take Li Xiang seriously at all. He said bluntly, "What do you want? Tell me, what's your purpose in contacting Cici?" "Uncle, I don't quite understand what you mean." Li Xiang squinted and replied. He didn't like Gu Xining's uncle's condescending eyes, which seemed to despise him. Originally, Li Xiang wanted to have a polite chat with him, but now he just wanted to leave as soon as possible. Hearing that Li Xiang was still pretending to be confused, Gu Jinni didn't stand on ceremony. He glared at Li Xiang and said, "Cici's father passed away not long ago, and you suddenly appeared by Cici's side. What do you think I mean? Tell me honestly who you are, and what's your purpose in contacting Cici?" Li Xiang really didn't like to be questioned, especially in such a way, which was like interrogating a criminal. However, Gu Jinni told Li Xiang an important news. That was, Gu Xining's father had passed away, which was beyond his expectation. Moreover, it was not long ago. No wonder he always felt that Gu Xining was a little abnormal. Therefore, it was understandable that Gu Xining's uncle wanted to see him. It should be for Gu Xining's good, but it was a little strange. Why did Gu Xining's mother and Gu Xining's uncle have such a different attitude? After coming to his senses, Li Xiang took the initiative to explain, "Uncle, I didn't know about Cici's father's death, nor did I take the initiative to contact Cici. I didn't have any purpose because I didn't know Cici's identity at all. I met her completely by chance, and then the following things happened. If you don't believe me, you can ask Cici." "Li Xiang, we're all adults. If I didn't suspect you, why would I look for you? There must be something wrong when things are abnormal. All coincidences may be inevitable. You came to Chengdu inexplicably, appear by Cici's side inexplicably, and now even became Cici's boyfriend. How can I not suspect you?" Gu Jinni said straightforwardly. Li Xiang frowned and said, "Have you investigated me?" "What? Are you afraid? It's normal to investigate you. Besides, your identity is very likely to be fake. Except for the time you spent in Chengdu, I couldn't find any other information about you. Do you think there's something wrong with you? And your aunt is also very suspicious." Gu Jinni sneered. The way he looked at Li Xiang became more unscrupulous, as if he could crush him. Li Xiang became more and more uncomfortable. He snorted and said, "Uncle, is it necessary to do this? Gu Xining is playing around, and I'm just playing with her. Can't you see it? Even if you suspect me, you can directly look for Gu Xining. Why do you have to investigate me?" Gu Jinni didn't want to talk nonsense with Li Xiang. He directly showed his cards and said, "Li Xiang, I don't care who you are or what your purpose is. What I want to tell you today is very simple. I want you to stay away from Gu Xining. Young people should know their place and don't ask for trouble." Li Xiang didn't like being targeted like this. He also wanted to fight back, but he was not alone. He still had his aunt and a Ning. So he finally chose to admit defeat and said, "Uncle, I will say for the last time. I didn't take the initiative to contact Gu Xining, and I don't have any purpose. I don't want to have anything to do with her, believe it or not. Since you came to me today, I will make it clear to you. Don't worry, I won't have any contact with Gu Xining in the future. I hope you can make it clear to her not to look for me again. I don't understand the world of rich people. I just want to live an ordinary life." After saying this, Li Xiang stood up and was ready to leave. He was a little annoyed and in a bad mood, because his life had been regular and fulfilling. Since he met Gu Xining, why did so many things suddenly happen, especially in recent days? He didn't want to be disturbed, and he didn't want to have any contact with Gu Xining. Since he met Gu Xining's uncle today, he would make it clear to him and hope that Gu Xining would not bother him anymore. No matter whether she looked for you or not, you just need to do your job. I will believe what you said for the time being, and I hope you can do what you said. Don't go back on your words. Otherwise, don't blame me for being rude, Gu Jinni said in a condescending manner and didn't look at Li Xiang at all. Li Xiang was about to leave, but who knew that at this time, Gu Jinni added at the end, "I heard that your aunt is very beautiful." Suddenly, the atmosphere was frozen at this moment. Li Xiang didn't expect that Gu Jinni would say such a thing. It was a threat, a naked threat. Li Xiang's eyes instantly dimmed. At this moment, it seemed that his brain didn't belong to him, and his whole aura completely changed, as if he had become a different person. He said with a murderous look, "What if I say I won't leave?" Gu Jinni didn't expect that Li Xiang would say such a thing. At the same time, he also felt that the atmosphere was not right. He looked at Li Xiang subconsciously, only to feel that the man in front of him suddenly became a little strange, not as ordinary as he was a moment ago. His whole temperament and aura had changed. Even Gu Jinni felt a little scared. This feeling was really weird. However, Gu Jinni felt that Li Xiang was thinking too much. He was just an ordinary nobody. What kind of waves could he stir up? Not to mention, he had the support of that big shot behind him. Even if Li Xiang came prepared, and there were other people behind him, Gu Jinni had nothing to fear. So Gu Jinni stared at Li Xiang and said, "Young man, isn't it good to be alive? Why do you want to die?" Chapter 11:11. Isn't it true? To Gu Jinni, he had seen too many reckless youths over the years. Many of them were like shooting stars falling from the sky. It was even more so in the past few years. It wasn't until Master Zhao's appearance that Chuan Yu finally calmed down. There were too many legends about Master Zhao, but these legends faded into obscurity. Gu Jinni had met him twice a few years ago, and after that, Master Zhao completely disappeared. However, Gu Jinni knew that these big shots in Sichuan and Chongqing, which one of them didn't follow Master Zhao's footsteps to start their business? But Li Xiang was already in his 30s. Why was he still so eager to die? Just like what he said, was it not good to be alive? No wonder he had achieved nothing in his 30s. Acting cool without strength was definitely stupid, not to mention acting cool in front of a powerful big shot who would kill you at any moment. This was called nipping the seeds of danger in the cradle, not letting them become an uncontrollable time bomb in the end. There was another possibility, and that was that Li Xiang really did have an ulterior motive for touching Gu Xining, which was why he was so fearless. The atmosphere suddenly became tense. Li Xiang's sudden counterattack surprised everyone present, but Gu Jinni still didn't take him seriously. He just treated the young man in front of him seriously again. He really wanted to know what Li Xiang wanted to do. After hearing Gu Jinni's words, Li Xiang fell into deep thought, but his aura was still strong, and his eyes were still sharp. He stared at Gu Jinni without any retreat. Suddenly, Li Xiang's aura disappeared. He came back to his senses, smiled at Gu Jinni strangely, and then turned around, ready to leave. Gu Jinni's two bodyguards directly blocked Li Xiang's way. What kind of place was this? How could he come and go as he pleased? Without Gu Jinni's order, they would never let Li Xiang leave so easily. There must be a price to pay for provoking a big shot. After all, a big shot's face was more valuable than anything else. Get out of my way. Li Xiang snorted. The two bodyguards didn't move and were even more serious, ready to take action at any time. At this time, Gu Jianyi chuckled and said, "Let him go." Hearing this, the two bodyguards took 2 steps back. Li Xiang didn't hesitate and left without looking back. Just like that, everyone watched as Li Xiang left. However, they felt that this man's back was a little weathered, and when they thought about his aura just now, they couldn't help but feel that he might really be a terrifying character. "Boss, let him go just like that." This Li Xiang is not simple, a middle-aged man beside Gu Jianyi said faintly. His name was Li Hui, and he was Gu Jianyi's assistant. Usually, he helped Gu Jianyi deal with all kinds of things. This time, during the internal strife of the Gu family, he did not lack in giving advice and suggestions. Gu Jianyi said in a deep voice, "If you can see it, how can I not see it? There's definitely something wrong with this kid. Since he's courting death, don't blame me for being impolite. Find a few people from Old Ma's place to test the depths of this kid. Let's see if he's a monk from outside or a local monster." Li Hui lowered his head respectfully and said, "I'll do it right away." After Li Hui left, Gu Jianyi's eyes were still disdainful as he said, "You'd better be an ordinary person. Otherwise, I'll make sure that you don't even know how you die." In this internal strife of the Gu family, as long as there were no accidents, he could force Min Shu and Gu Yongning to hand over their shares. At that time, the Gu family would be under his control. Moreover, this time he had the support of the big boss of Sichuan. What was there to be afraid of? After a few minutes, "What kind of shabby place is this? Why is it so big?" Li Xiang cursed in a bad mood. After walking for so long, they still hadn't walked out of this place. This place was really too big. He didn't know whether these rich people would get lost or not. Today, Li Xiang was really angered by this uncle of Gu Xining. Not to mention his attitude towards him, he couldn't bear the last threatening words. At that time, he really wanted to get angry because whoever dared to touch his aunt would be challenging his bottom line. He would definitely fight back with all his might. But in the end, he controlled himself and felt that he could not be so impulsive. After all, there were many people on the other side. Even if he wanted to beat Gu Jianyi up, he had to find a suitable opportunity. Moreover, there was also his relationship with Gu Yongning. Gu Jianyi looked for him for Gu Yongning's own good. As long as he stayed away from Gu Yongning, there would not be these troubles. Finally walking out of Lushan International Community, Li Xiang was in a very bad mood today. He didn't want to go to the bar to sing, so he directly called to ask for leave. He didn't care about the manager's scolding and finally hung up the phone. He just wanted to be alone for a while. Li Xiang was somewhat extravagant as he casually hailed a taxi and aimlessly strolled around the bustling city. He liked to sit in the car and look at the night view of the city. The bright and beautiful city seemed to have an inexplicable charm, always making him unable to resist exploring the darkness in those places. There were still a lot of fragmented memories floating in his mind. Some memories were getting clearer and clearer. Some people seemed to be slowly remembering, and some things made him at a loss. He somewhat suspected that he was living in a virtual reality world. Was the man in his mind the real him, or was the Li Xiang at this moment the real him? Perhaps when his aunt came back, he would seriously ask her again, and then he would know. In the taxi, the driver thought that he was a tourist in Chengdu, so he introduced the city to him in Trump speak, such as where it was fun, where it was delicious, and where he could have fun. Li Xiang didn't really listen, but he still responded with a smile. The driver looked at the number on the meter, jumping more and more happily. This kind of big business was not encountered every day. He subconsciously had already regarded Li Xiang as a rich tourist, but he didn't know that this man had no car, no house, and no achievements. In the eyes of others, perhaps he was a waste. Finally, Li Xiang understood a lot of things. It was better to continue with the current trajectory of life and let everything take its course. He chose to go home. Gu Xining called him several times, but Li Xiang didn't pick up. He seemed to want to go back to his previous life and didn't want to be disturbed by strangers, not to mention there would be so many troubles. Ning also called him, but Li Xiang didn't pick up. He just wanted to be alone. Tomorrow, he would tell Ning that the money had been returned and the problem had been solved. He just needed to work hard in the future and don't think so much. When the bookstore's business was better, he would hire someone else. After all, An Ning graduated from Sichuan University. He couldn't waste his youth here, right? At the entrance of the community, Li Xiang paid the driver nearly 400 yuan. He had been in Chengdu for so long, but he had never been extravagant. He didn't expect that it would be in such a way. Now that he thought about it, he seemed to regret it. After getting off the car, Li Xiang was ready to go home and sleep. When he just arrived at the entrance of the community, he saw a red Ferrari parked at the entrance. Li Xiang didn't have time to consider whether it was Gu Xining's car, because he didn't see the license plate. At this time, he saw Gu Xining getting off the Ferrari. Under the dim light, Gu Xining, who was dressed in sportswear, slowly walked toward Li Xiang. But her hair looked a little messy, and her eyes were a little red and swollen, as if she had just cried, which made people feel sorry for her. Li Xiang just froze for a moment. Then he didn't think much and went straight forward. Gu Xining directly blocked Li Xiang's way and said, "Didn't you go to the bar today? This is my life. It seems to have nothing to do with you," Li Xiang said faintly, and his attitude was a little cold. Gu Xining frowned and said, "What's wrong with you? Are you in a bad mood, or did I offend you?" Gu Xining, you are a fair, rich, and beautiful woman with a prominent family background. I'm just an ordinary nobody. I don't have time to play with you anymore. Don't make fun of me anymore. I will pay you back the money I owe you when my aunt comes back. Let's not have anything to do with each other in the future. Li Xiang finally stopped, turned around, and said bluntly to Gu Xining. Gu Xining didn't expect that Li Xiang would say such a thing. She was a little at a loss and said, "Why did you say such things to me?" "Nothing, it's like this. Maybe I will leave Chengdu after a while." Li Xiang could only use such an excuse to dismiss Gu Xining. Li Xiang's words tonight had a huge impact on Gu Xining. She couldn't accept what Li Xiang had said at all. Why did Li Xiang suddenly change into a different person and treat her so coldly and harshly? Although Li Xiang kept a distance from her before, he would never say such hurtful words to her. Gu Xining suddenly thought of what her mother said yesterday. Then she thought of the fact that Li Xiang didn't go to work today. It seemed that the housekeeper also told her that her uncle met a young man this evening. Could this young man be Li Xiang? After Gu Xining came to her senses, she immediately shouted, "Li Xiang, have you met my uncle?" Li Xiang didn't expect that Gu Xining actually knew it. She should have guessed it, otherwise she would have said it directly. He said calmly, "Yes, I have met your uncle. I think what he said is quite right." Sure enough, no wonder Li Xiang would be like this. It was Gu Jinni again. He just wanted the Gu family's shares. Gu Xining was a little angry and said, "Do you think he did it for my own good?" Li Xiang didn't understand what Gu Xining meant and asked, "Isn't it? He is your uncle. Of course he did it for your own good." "Then do you know how my father died?" Gu Xining shouted, gritting her teeth. When she finished this sentence, Gu Xining's eyes were already red and tears came out. She gritted her teeth stubbornly and looked very wronged. Did Li Xiang really think that she fell in love at first sight because the hero saved the beauty? It was just because she saw the shadow of her father in Li Xiang. She felt that they were somewhat similar in appearance and temperament. So she pestered Li Xiang like this. She, Gu Xining, was not the kind of woman who would fall in love with any man she met. "What do you mean?" Li Xiang said in surprise. This time, Li Xiang was a little confused. Gu Xining's words were very clear. If he was not stupid, he would naturally understand what she meant. Chapter 11-12. At Lushan International Golf Club, the main reason why Li Xiang didn't get angry with Gu Jinni was that Gu Jinni was Gu Xining's uncle. What he did was for Gu Xining's sake. After all, Li Xiang and Gu Xining were not suitable for each other, regardless of age or other aspects. If he were Gu Jinni, he might have done the same. But now, what Gu Xining said suddenly made Li Xiang feel that things might not be as simple as he thought. More than 10 minutes later, in a food stall not far from the community, Li Xiang, who was in a bad mood today, was drinking with Gu Xining, who was also in a bad mood. This time, Li Xiang didn't say that he couldn't drink and so on. Maybe he felt that Gu Xining was a little distressed at the moment, or maybe he wanted to figure out what he wanted to know. Li Xiang casually ordered some barbecue, poured Gu Xining a full glass of wine, and took the initiative to clink glasses and said, Now can you tell me what on earth is going on? In the food stall, a great beauty like Gu Xining naturally attracted the attention of many men. After all, such a woman was a goddess that many men couldn't get close to in their lifetime. They naturally envied Li Xiang, who was sitting opposite Gu Xining, but they didn't know that Li Xiang didn't know how lucky he was. Gu Xining, who hadn't calmed down yet, raised her head and drank up, looking quite free and easy. She said in a low voice, "He should have told you about my father's unexpected death, right? So you think that, as my uncle, everything he does is for my sake?" "Yes," he said it. "I think so too. Most people should think so too," Li Xiang replied truthfully. Gu Xining put down the glass and stared at Li Xiang with some grievance. "But it may be him who killed my father. He is my uncle, and I am most afraid of him now. Now he has done anything to get the group shares in my mother's hands. He is just afraid that your appearance will disrupt his plan, so he took the initiative to come to you to warn you. What's my sake? It's all T. Li Xiang was stunned for a few seconds, and suddenly his eyes turned gloomy. "I finally understand." At this moment, Li Xiang's favorable impression of Gu Jiani instantly disappeared. He also somewhat regretted that he didn't directly beat Gu Jiani up at the golf course. Not to mention that Gu Jiani used his aunt to threaten him. Just the fact that Gu Jiani harmed his own brother made Li Xiang want to dismember his body into 1,000 pieces. As for his bodyguards, Li Xiang really didn't put them in his eyes. Sometimes, if it wasn't for his aunt telling him to keep a low profile, he wouldn't be so cowardly. Then why did he want to harm your father? Li Xiang couldn't understand. After all, this was his biological brother. At this time, Gu Xining tied up her hair and looked a little pure. She said casually, "Everything is for the interests. His shares are almost the same as my father's. In the past 2 years, he has been in conflict with my father. Besides, the things he is responsible for have a lot of problems. I heard that he lost a lot of money in Macau. That's why he did this." "No wonder," Li Xiang said thoughtfully. "Then are you and your mother in danger?" Gu Xining shook her head and sighed. "I don't think he will do anything to us, but he has been forcing us to sell our shares to him at a low price. But my mother and I are unwilling. This is my father's family business. How can we give it to him? At present, we are still struggling to hold on. If we really can't do it, then we will talk about it. After all, he has the support of a big shot behind him." The support of a big shot. Li Xiang's face changed slightly. When saying this, Gu Xining suddenly felt a little helpless. She said, "It's a person that we can't afford to offend. Otherwise, how can my uncle be so unscrupulous? But you can rest assured that from tomorrow on, I won't pester you anymore. You don't have to worry about anything. These things have nothing to do with you. I have thought it through." "What do you mean?" Li Xiang asked deliberately. Gu Xining drank a glass of wine and said, "Nothing. These things have nothing to do with you. If something happens to you because of me, I will blame myself more. I didn't expect that he would interfere in my private life. If it was before, even if Gu Xining didn't say these things, Li Xiang would not talk to Gu Xining in the future. But now Li Xiang changed his mind. "I'm your boyfriend. How could I abandon you at this time?" Li Xiang said in a powerful voice. Hearing this, Gu Xining was stunned for a few seconds. Then she felt a little moved. In the end, she didn't know whether to laugh or cry. She said, "Uncle, stop it. Do you really take it seriously? I was just joking with you. You don't really think that I like you, do you?" There were some things that Li Xiang didn't understand. Gu Xining met so many people every day. Why did she suddenly meet him? It might be because of the episode that night, or it might be because of other reasons. But after Gu Xining explained it to Li Xiang understood. Gu Xining explained with a smile, "Actually, I am very grateful to meet you. After my father passed away, I was in a bad mood. I drank wine almost every day. Thanks to you that day, I didn't have an accident. There are several reasons why I pestered you. One is that I want to thank you in person. Another is that you sing better. Secondly, I feel that you're like a mystery. I can't help but want to unravel the mystery. The last and most important reason is that you are somewhat similar to my father in both appearance and temperament." After hearing this, Li Xiang was a little surprised. He could understand the reasons at the beginning, but he was a little confused about the last one. He frowned and said, "You said that I look a little like your father?" Gu Xining thought that Li Xiang was lying to her, so she turned on her phone and showed her father's photo to Li Xiang. She said, "Do you think so?" Li Xiang held the phone and looked at it for a few seconds. The kind-looking middle-aged man in the photo did look a little like him, but it was hard to tell if one didn't look carefully. Maybe Gu Xining missed her father so much that she thought they looked alike. Otherwise, why didn't Gu Jiani think so when they were at Lushan International Golf Club today? After all, he was his brother. "Do you believe me now?" Gu Xining smiled. Li Xiang nodded silently. Gu Xining continued, "So I won't pester you anymore. It's time for me to move on." Li Xiang seemed to get to know Gu Xining all over again. He felt that she was not what he thought she was. In fact, she was really kind. She took the initiative to say these things now to protect him. This made Li Xiang want to protect her even more. He didn't want to see her being bullied and wronged. Therefore, Li Xiang said, "But I kind of like you now." Gu Xining was stunned for a few seconds when she heard this. Then she didn't know whether to laugh or cry. She said, "Li Xiang, stop it." "It's true," Li Xiang insisted. He really wanted to play with Gu Jiani. Anyway, life in Chengdu was boring. Moreover, Gu Xining had said that Gu Jiani was supported by a big shot, so no one would be willing to help her. Was he just going to watch? If he hadn't met Gu Xining, these things would have nothing to do with him. But now that he had met them, he wanted to meddle in their business. In particular, Gu Jiani used his aunt to threaten him today, which made him very unhappy. Gu Xining was not silly. She was a top student at Sichuan University. How could she not understand why Li Xiang suddenly changed his attitude? She was a little moved and said, "Li Xiang, I know you want to help me, but there are some things that you can't help with. I don't want to drag you down. I'm not helping you. I just want to vent my anger. Because he used my aunt to threaten me today, I won't allow anyone to do this," Li Xiang said, gnashing his teeth. Gu Xining was very clear about Li Xiang's character. Moreover, she didn't want to say goodbye to Li Xiang in this way. So she gnashed her teeth and said, "Li Xiang, aren't you afraid?" Li Xiang drank a glass of wine and looked up at the night sky. His eyes were a little gloomy. After hesitating for a few seconds, he suddenly said playfully, "Recently, I seem to think of a lot of things in the past. If those things in the past are true, I am really not afraid of your uncle. I want to meet the big shot behind him. Moreover, I have died several times in the past." Gu Xining didn't know whether what Li Xiang said was true or not. She found it funny and said, "Li Xiang, what kind of person were you in the past?" Li Xiang said unhurriedly, "You will know in the future." Gu Xining poured 2 glasses of wine and said, "I hope you will regain your memories soon." After drinking, Li Xiang said, "From now on, we are friends. No matter what happens, you can call me at any time, especially your uncle. Of course, to others, you can continue to say that I am your boyfriend." Okay. Gu Xining didn't refuse. Although she knew that Li Xiang couldn't help her, she was very touched by his kindness. As for other things, she didn't want to think about it anymore. After chatting and drinking, Gu Xining asked the designated driver to go back. Li Xiang also went home to rest. The next morning, when Li Xiang came out of the community and rode his beloved motorcycle to the express delivery station to work, he obviously found that someone was following him. If he was not mistaken, it must be someone sent by Gu Xining's uncle. It seemed that this man was really a man of his word. Then let him continue to follow him. Li Xiang worked for a whole day. The person sent by Gu Xining's uncle followed Li Xiang for a whole day. He was really not tired. At noon, Li Xiang went back to the bookstore and talked with Ning for a while. He also told Ning about what had happened yesterday, so that Ning could be completely relieved. At the same time, he reminded Ning to be careful of strangers wandering around the bookstore recently. He was also afraid that they would hurt Ning. In the evening, they got off work. As expected, Gu Xining appeared at the gate of the express station. Under the envious eyes of all his colleagues, Li Xiang sat in Gu Xining's Ferrari. This time, he took the initiative to ask Gu Xining to come. To put it bluntly, he wanted to show Gu Xining's uncle that from today on, he would protect Gu Xining. "Do whatever you want." As expected, when they drove away, the 2 men who had been following Li Xiang immediately reported the situation to Gu Jiani. They said that Li Xiang didn't stay away from Gu Xining, but continued to stay with Gu Xining and seemed to be very intimate with her. On the top floor of a building in Chengdu, Tianfu New District. After hearing the news, Gu Jinni said, "You are so reckless. I will make you pay for it." Chapter 11:13. A trip to Mount Qingqing was inexplicably involved in the internal strife of the Gu family, but he did not run away. Instead, he chose to stand on the side of the helpless Gu Xining. Gu Jinni even dared to kill his own brother. Li Xiang was really afraid that he would harm Gu Xining. Moreover, this old thing dared to threaten him. Li Xiang could not bear it anymore. As for how Gu Jinni would treat him, Li Xiang did not take it seriously. It was nothing more than those dirty tricks. He would just wait and see. Gu Jinni asked him to stay away from Gu Xining, but Li Xiang insisted on staying with Gu Xining. From today on, he would not leave Gu Xining's side. He planned to go to the express delivery station tomorrow and ask the boss for a period of time. During this period, he would follow Gu Xining and get to know the city well. But at night, he would go to the bar to sing. After all, it was easier to make money singing in the bar. He just sang every day. It was not as tiring as working in the express delivery station. In the end, he would not make as much as singing in the bar. But not everyone could eat this bowl of rice. At least in this bar, there were more and more fans of Li Xiang, including many beautiful girls. But the appearance of Gu Xining made others give up the idea. Now everyone knew that Gu Xining was Li Xiang's girlfriend, and it was said that she was a very rich, fair, and beautiful girl. Li Xiang already had such a girlfriend. Would he have any ideas about other people? Besides, other people did not have the courage to steal his girlfriend. The next day, at the express delivery station, Li Xiang asked the boss's wife for a leave. He said that he could not come to work recently because of some things. When the express delivery station still needed people, he would come to work at that time. After all, Li Xiang was not the boss. He could not come and go as he pleased. He had to see if the boss needed people or not. Li Xiang knew this rule. Moreover, he felt that this job was actually meaningless to him. He was waiting for his aunt to come back to discuss his resignation. The boss's wife understood what Li Xiang meant. She was surprised and said, "Li Xiang, what's wrong? Are you going to quit? Are you feeling too tired? Do you want me to give you something easier to do?" In fact, when Li Xiang came, whether it was the boss, the lady boss, or the other workers at the station, they all felt that Li Xiang would not stay here for long. Moreover, they felt that a man like Li Xiang should not work here. This was not the place for him. Therefore, they knew that Li Xiang would leave sooner or later. Gu Xining's appearance hastened Li Xiang's departure. They were all guessing when Li Xiang would resign, but they didn't expect it to happen so soon. "Madam, that's not the reason. I really have some things to do. I'll come back after I'm done with them. If you don't mind," Li Xiang explained with a smile. He was just being polite. The lady boss was really reluctant to let Li Xiang leave. After all, Li Xiang was the most handsome person here. However, she also thought that Li Xiang couldn't work here for a lifetime. Sooner or later, he would leave, but when the time came, she was still a little reluctant. "All right, I know I can't make you stay. Tell me when you want to come back. This will always be your maiden home," the lady boss said with grievance. She would be so sad if she thought that she would never see Li Xiang again. After Li Xiang walked out of the lady boss's office, he said goodbye to the other workers at the station. Huang Su heard it and said, "Boy, you've been hiding so much. We knew that you would leave sooner or later. I guess you came here to experience life. You look like a boss. How could you do manual labor?" Li Xiang knew that they always thought so. No matter how he explained, they wouldn't listen to him. He had no choice but to say, "Brother Su, when I really make a lot of money, I'll treat you to a meal." "Okay, we'll wait for you." "Don't fool us," Huang Su said with a smile. Li Xiang patted Huang Su's shoulder and said, "Don't worry, I won't. I'll treat you to a meal when I'm free. Thank you for taking care of me these days. Let's keep in touch in the future." "Okay, I'll wait for your arrangement." Huang Su laughed. Li Xiang chatted with Huang Su for a while and asked him to inform his brothers who didn't come back. Then he left directly. After Li Xiang left, someone muttered, "Brother Su, do you think Li Xiang is a mistress of that fair, rich, and beautiful girl? Get lost. What are you talking about? Do you think Li Xiang is that kind of person? I think he has known that fair, rich, and beautiful girl for a long time. Maybe Li Xiang is also a rich second generation, Huang Su said with some confidence. Maybe he was the closest to Li Xiang and knew him better. After Li Xiang left the station, he went back to the community. His aunt was not back, so the house was more or less deserted. Li Xiang bought some vegetables at the entrance of the community. Recently, Ning might be sick of eating takeout. Today, he cooked lunch for Ning in person as a reward for this little girl. At noon, Li Xiang came to the bookstore with lunch. Ning was cleaning. Li Xiang smiled and said, Ning, come and eat. Li Xiang was busy recently. Ning always ordered takeout by herself. She didn't expect that he would come in person today. Ning was a little moved and said, Brother Li Xiang, what did you buy? Why do you have so much? What do you mean I bought it? Today I cooked lunch for you. Try my cooking. Although it's not as good as aunt's, it should be good. Li Xiang put the lunch on the table and said with a smile. He had cooked a few times before and felt that his cooking was good. But his aunt didn't let him cook, so Li Xiang didn't have the chance to show it. So Ning had never eaten the food cooked by Li Xiang. Ning was surprised when she heard this. Brother Li Xiang, didn't you go to work today? No, I asked for leave. I won't go to work for a period of time. So you don't need to eat takeout during this period. Li Xiang opened the lunchbox and said with a smile. Ning was dumbfounded. Why? Didn't you discuss it with aunt? Li Xiang also wanted to discuss it with his aunt, but she had been out for so long and didn't even call him. Li Xiang called her several times, but she didn't answer. He suspected that she had been abducted and sold. His aunt was so beautiful. I have some things to deal with recently. When I'm done, I'm going to change my salary. It's too boring to deliver packages. But I have to sing in the bar every day, so I have some income. As for aunt, I can't contact her. How can I discuss it with her? Let's talk about it when she comes back. Li Xiang explained helplessly. Ning hesitated and said, Why don't we talk about it when aunt comes back? No, it's not a big deal. Don't think about it. Just eat. Li Xiang didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Ning was always so worried about him. It seemed that she was more worried about him than his aunt. He was more like a little brother to Ning. After lunch, Li Xiang stayed in the shop for a while and let Ning have a rest. The business of the bookstore was as usual, especially at noon. Li Xiang sat at the door and blew the fan, reading and playing with the cat. In fact, this kind of life was quite comfortable. It was okay for young people to relax occasionally. If they lived like this every day, they would definitely be bored to death. Li Xiang had lived in the Sichuanabet town for nearly 3 years. He had long been tired of this kind of life. He thought that he would live there for the rest of his life. Therefore, whenever he met interested tourists, Li Xiang would chat with them for a long time. Therefore, he looked forward to the outside world more and more. When his aunt said that she was going to live in Chengdu, Li Xiang was so excited that he didn't sleep well for several nights. Finally, he could leave there. When Li Xiang was absorbed in reading, he suddenly smelled a faint perfume. Ning never wore perfume. She dealt with all kinds of flowers and plants every day. The smell on her body was the fragrance of flowers. Therefore, it must be the fragrance of another woman. When Li Xiang was about to raise his head, Gu Xining smiled and said, The way you read is quite charming. You must have cheated a lot of girls before. Li Xiang heard the familiar voice and replied, What do you think? Otherwise, how can I be your boyfriend? Gu Xining said angrily, Shut up. Today, she asked Li Xiang to go to Mount Qingcheng with a few other close friends. She would just take it as a summer vacation. After all, Mount Qingcheng was the holy place of summer vacation for people in Chengdu. Many people would go to Mount Qingcheng on weekends. In addition, 2 or 3 friends would go with them. Li Xiang stood up and said, Let's go then. Then, he wanted to tell Ning. At this time, Ning came out and saw Gu Xining. She just greeted her indifferently. It seemed that she was not so enthusiastic about Gu Xining, because she had guessed yesterday that Li Xiang must have asked for leave because of this woman. It seemed that Li Xiang had changed a lot after this woman appeared. Watching Li Xiang and Gu Xining leave, Ning could only pray that her aunt would come back soon. She was afraid that Li Xiang would learn bad things from Gu Xining. There were 5 people in total on this trip to Mount Qingcheng, including Li Xiang, Gu Xining, Sun Tian, whom Li Xiang had met the other day, Liang Zhe, and his girlfriend, who had reminded Li Xiang that night. Liang Zhe had already set off with his girlfriend and son Tian. Gu Xining and Li Xiang went directly to Mount Qingsheng to meet them at the Six Virtues Hotel. On the way to Mount Qingsheng, Li Xiang was Gu Xining's driver today. Although he had never driven a Ferrari before, he felt that it was very familiar after getting in the car. It was so familiar that he felt it was a little unbelievable. He could only guess that he must have driven such a sports car before. Thinking about the memory fragments, it seemed that nothing was impossible. In the past, he had driven all kinds of luxury cars and sports cars. Most of the time, he let the driver drive. After all, he was never short of drivers. Gu Xining was a little tired and directly fell asleep on the way. Li Xiang drove very steadily, not so unscrupulously. On the way to Qingsheng Mountain, Li Xiang felt that he was being followed. If he was not mistaken, it should be the people sent by Gu Jiani. It seems that sooner or later he will have to fight with this group of people. There is no guarantee that an accident will happen in Qingsheng Mountain. When Li Xiang and Gu Xining went to Mount Qingsheng, Li Xiang's aunt had already quietly returned to Chengdu, but she did not go home directly. She also went to Mount Qingsheng. Chapter 11:14. Mount Qingsheng could be said to be a summer resort for the people of Chengdu, and it was a tourist attraction for many tourists. Every summer, it was often overcrowded, and there were many high-end resort hotels, such as the Six Benevolent Hotel, where they came for vacation this time. When they were about to arrive at Mount Qingsheng, Gu Xining woke up in a daze and murmured, "How long have I been sleeping?" Li Xiang laughed and said, "You slept all the way." Gu Xining shook her head and smiled bitterly. "Maybe I'm too tired recently, but you drove steadily, and I slept very well." Gu Xining was indeed very tired. She had just finished her father's funeral a few days ago, and the Gu family had begun to fight with each other after a few days of rest. Although she looked relaxed every time she went to see Li Xiang, in fact, she had to help her mother deal with the internal affairs of the company during the day, and she had to face her uncle's pressure. Li Xiang didn't say anything. He could understand Gu Xining's situation. Gu Xining would never tell him many things, because even if she told him, he couldn't do anything about it. Moreover, Gu Xining would think that these things had nothing to do with Li Xiang. Soon, they arrived at the Lushan Hotel. Liang Zhe had booked a suite, and he would stay here with his girlfriend for a few more days. Gu Xining, Li Xiang, and Sun Tian would go back to the downtown area in the evening. After all, Mount Qingsheng was not far from the downtown area, and it would only take them half an hour to get there by train. Liang Zhe took his girlfriend and Sun Tian with him. In fact, no one had seen his girlfriend before, including Gu Xining and Sun Tian. After all, everyone had said that Liang Zhe had a crush on Gu Xining. But now Liang Zhe had a girlfriend, and he let his girlfriend meet his crush. It could be seen that he had already let go of this matter. Liang Zhe's girlfriend was Yu, a very elegant female lawyer. She was a few years older than Liang Zhe and ran a well-known law firm in Chengdu. Of course, this was also because almost all of her relatives worked in the political and legal system, which might be the reason why Liang Zhe went to see her. And Yu was not very beautiful, but she had a good temperament and looked very cultured, which made people feel comfortable. When Gu Xining saw Sun Tian, she joked, "Liang Zhe brought his girlfriend out to escape the heat. Why are you being a third wheel?" Sun Tian was also unforgiving. She glanced at Liang Zhe and Yu, and then at Gu Xining and Li Xiang. She said with some hidden bitterness, "It's my fault for coming here this time. You're a couple, and I'm not just a third wheel. If I had known this, I wouldn't have come." "I'm just kidding," Gu Xining comforted, and Yu was already very familiar with Sun Tian. She also said with a smile, "We are all here to play. It will be more interesting if there are more people. Don't think too much." With a few well-educated and cultured beauties together, they naturally didn't have to worry about quarreling and so on. Moreover, women were born to be familiar with each other, so it didn't take long for them to chat together. They talked about all kinds of topics that belonged to them. Moreover, their family backgrounds were similar, so they didn't feel that they had nothing to talk about. Liang Zhe took out a cigarette, looked at Li Xiang, and said, let's go out for a smoke. Although Li Xiang didn't smoke, he still followed Liang Zhe out. Last time, he thought that Liang Zhe was threatening him. Later, he realized that Liang Zhe was reminding him out of kindness, which also made Li Xiang have a good impression of Liang Zhe. Otherwise, Li Xiang wouldn't have refused Liang Zhe's invitation to Qingshan City this time. In the garden outside the villa, Liang Zhe handed a cigarette to Li Xiang. Li Xiang didn't refuse and took it directly. However, he was not in a hurry to smoke, but played with it in his hand. Although his aunt didn't allow him to smoke, just like she didn't allow him to drink, Li Xiang had tried it secretly. He had a natural sense of familiarity with it, and didn't need others to teach him at all. Therefore, Li Xiang guessed that he must have been a heavy smoker in the past. Coupled with the appearance of those memory fragments, Li Xiang was even more certain about this, but he still didn't believe that it was true. After Liang Zhe lit the cigarette, he puffed out smoke and said, "I've been thinking about what Gu Xining likes about you. I still can't figure it out." Li Xiang didn't stay silent. Instead, he said half-jokingly, "She likes older men." Liang Zhe almost choked on his words. He didn't know whether to laugh or cry as he said, "It seems to make sense. However, you're in your early 30s, not too old. It's just that you don't look like a man in his early 30s. You're more like a man in his 40s or 50s. If I didn't know what you do for a living, I really couldn't figure it out." "Do you like to figure people out?" Li Xiang asked. Liang Zhe shook his head and said, "I'm not that scheming. I'm just interested in you. To be honest, I really admire you. I thought you wouldn't be able to hold on for a few days. I didn't expect that you're still with Gu Xining. I want to ask you, do you know what happened to the Gu family?" "Yes, I do." Li Xiang gave a simple answer. Liang Zhe hesitated for a few seconds and then laughed out loud as he said, "Then I also want to know whether Gu Jiani has looked for you." "Oh, he is Gu Xining's uncle." "Yes." Li Xiang didn't talk nonsense. This time, Liang Zhe came to his senses after a long time and said, Li Xiang, I really admire you. I really don't know what you're thinking. Are you a newborn calf that is not afraid of a tiger? Or are you an indomitable tiger?" Li Xiang didn't say anything. He didn't think that Liang Zhe meant to tease him. It seemed that Liang Zhe was very clear about everything. This man, who was a little noble, was more worried. In fact, if Liang Zhe didn't dye his hair, he would be a handsome gentleman. Otherwise, how could he coax in you, who had a mature temperament, into his heart? As for dyeing his hair, it was because he lost a bet with his friend. A man should be willing to accept the loss. Anyway, it was only a month. Therefore, his father didn't want him to go home within a month, because he thought it was embarrassing. "Are you really not afraid of death? It's said that Gu Jiani killed his own brother. Aren't you afraid that he will want to kill you?" Liang Zhe asked confusedly. Li Xiang replied honestly, "I am afraid. But this is a society ruled by law. I don't believe that he dares to kill me in broad daylight. You're already in your 30s. Don't take it seriously. Of course, he won't do it himself. I'm sure he will find someone else to do it. Even if something happens, so what? Gu Jiani has Godfather Ma's support. Do you know who Godfather Ma is?" Liang Zhe said helplessly. He liked Li Xiang and didn't want him to get involved in this mess. It was useless to sacrifice him. Li Xiang shook his head honestly. "Gu Jiani dares to be so unscrupulous because he has Godfather Ma's support. I heard that before Godfather Ma made a name for himself, Gu Jiani helped Godfather Ma twice. Later, with Godfather Ma's support, Gu Jiani's career became bigger and bigger. As for this Godfather Ma, he was just a small fry in the past. It was only because he got in touch with a legendary figure in Chuanyu that he managed to rise to the top. In the end, he became one of the big shots in Chuanyu." Li Xiang was a little interested and asked, "Who is the legendary figure in Chuanyu?" "Oh, then I'll tell you in detail. Of course, most of what I know is hearsay. This legendary figure in Chuanyu is called Master Zhao. It's said that he has a powerful background and is very powerful. It only took him a few years to become a legendary figure in Chuanyu. These so-called big shots in Chuanyu were just following him in the past. However, Master Zhao got into trouble and went to prison. A few years later, he disappeared completely. No one knows where he went. The people who have seen him are getting fewer and fewer. However, the group of people under him became the big shots in Chuanyu. However, They don't interfere with each other. So Chuanyu has been very quiet these years. Liangzhe explained in a very simple way. He said it with excitement, as if he was that Master Zhao and he had experienced what happened in the past. Li Xiang was very surprised and said, "So powerful?" Liangzhe said with a smile, "What do you think? Why has Chuanyu been so quiet these years?" Everyone guessed that Master Zhao has always been behind the scenes, so these so-called big shots in Chuanyu don't dare to act recklessly. Otherwise, how could the two groups under Master Zhao develop so fast? I also heard that Master Zhao has a manor that covers an area of hundreds of acres at the foot of Mount Qingsheng. He usually lives here most of the time, but almost no one has seen him. Some people said that Master Zhao has gone to travel around the world and doesn't come back to Chengdu often. Do you admire Master Zhao very much? Li Xiang asked. Liangzhe laughed and said, "Of course. Who doesn't admire such a man?" After saying that, Liangzhe came to his senses and said in a hurry, "How did we get off topic? We were talking about you. Why do we talk about Master Zhao? So now do you know why Gu Jiani is so arrogant? It's because Master Ma is behind him and Master Zhao is behind Master Ma. So I advise you not to get involved." Li Xiang said firmly, "What if I insist on lying down?" Liangzhe was a little helpless. It seemed that he had already known that Li Xiang would do this. He could only smile bitterly and said, "Remember to find someone to collect your body. If not, I don't mind." After saying that, Liangzhe went back to his room. Li Xiang didn't go back. Instead, he wandered around in the Lushan Hotel. The Lushan Hotel was almost a standalone villa, which covered an especially large area. The occupancy rate was also very high in summer. After a while, Li Xiang found that the people who had been following him appeared again. Not surprisingly, they must be Gu Jiani's people again, which made Li Xiang somewhat angry. It seemed that he really had to meet these people. Otherwise, they would think that he was easy to bully. Not long after, Li Xiang returned to the villa. Liangzhe was swimming with Gu Xining, Sun Tian, and Yu. The beauties were all wearing very beautiful and sexy swimsuits, especially Yu and Sun Tian, who were wearing bikinis. Their soft breasts, slim waists, and perky buttocks really made people unable to take their eyes off them. As for Gu Xining, perhaps because of Liangzhe, she was wearing a more conservative one-piece swimsuit. They asked Li Xiang to swim, but Li Xiang said that he didn't know how to swim. Gu Xining offered to teach him how to swim, but Li Xiang said that he was afraid of water. So Gu Xining didn't insist anymore. Did Li Xiang really not know how to swim? He was probably more professional than these people here. It was just that Li Xiang didn't want to take off his clothes. There were too many scars on his body. Even he didn't know what was going on. His aunt had been using herbs to make the scars disappear, but the effect was not so obvious, so his aunt told him not to take off his clothes casually. It was also because of these scars that Li Xiang increasingly felt that those memory fragments were actually the first half of his life. They stayed in the hotel until evening. After dinner, it was dark. Gu Xining was ready to go back with Li Xiang. At this time, Li Xiang said that he was going out to meet a friend. Anyway, he just needed to go to the Juyin Bridge at 10 o'clock. Gu Xining asked if he needed her to accompany him. Li Xiang said that he could go alone and will be back soon. Gu Xining didn't say anything. After Li Xiang left the hotel, he found that those people who had been following him appeared again. This time, they were very close. It seemed that there were 3 men, and they were not easy to deal with. Therefore, Li Xiang deliberately went to the remote place, which was to give them a chance. Otherwise, how could he teach them a lesson? There was a forest in front of him. There were almost no passers-by here. After passing through the forest, they entered the mountain, which was a relatively easy place to attack. Li Xiang kept leading these men into the mountain. Maybe because he walked too fast, these men didn't keep up with Li Xiang after entering the forest. In the end, they took the opposite route of Li Xiang. One went east, while the other went west. Li Xiang didn't know it at all and kept walking forward. At the foot of Mount Qingsheng, 3 men murmured in the dark night, "Big brother, did we lose him?" The other one replied, "I don't think so. We have been following him closely." "Then what should we do? Keep going forward?" "Yes." The leader directly made the decision. At this time, A woman of unknown age slowly walked out of the dark forest. The woman's footsteps were very light, but her whole body was full of murderous intent. She sneered and said, "Are you looking for me?" Her words startled the three men. The leader was stunned and said, "Who are you? Are you a human or a ghost?" The woman shook her head and said with a bitter smile, "Even cats and dogs come out to join the fun. Don't you want to die faster?" "What do you mean?" the leader asked. The woman didn't say anything. Just like a ghost, she suddenly disappeared into the darkness. However, the next second, the three men suddenly fell down inexplicably. They died suddenly and died with their eyes open. In Mount Qingcheng, after walking for more than 10 minutes, Li Xiang waited there for the three men to follow him. However, after waiting for a full 10 minutes, he found that they didn't follow him. This made Li Xiang a little speechless. "Are they King professional? I am waiting here to kill you, but you don't follow me. What a bunch of trash." Therefore, Li Xiang went back to find them. It was not easy to get such an opportunity. How could he miss it? Otherwise, he would be followed by them again. Who could stand such a life? However, Li Xiang went back the way he came, but he didn't find these people. Seeing that it was getting late, Li Xiang was in a hurry to return to the Nine-Eye Bridge to sing. At the same time, he was afraid that Gu Xining and the others would worry about him. In the end, he could only go back disappointed. Late at night, in a mansion in Lushan International Community, Gu Jiani was drinking and chatting in a restaurant. Today, he invited several friends to drink. They were all his partners and members of his consortium. At this time, Gu Jiani's confidant walked in slowly and stopped beside Gu Jiani. Then he leaned over and whispered in Gu Jiani's ear, "Mr. Gu, the three men who followed Li Xiang can't be contacted. Something might have happened." Hearing this, Gu Jiani's face changed slightly. Li Xiang really came prepared. Chapter 11:15. It was all true. The woman who quietly appeared in Mount Qingcheng and finally solved the problem for Li Xiang was none other than his aunt, who had just returned to Chengdu. She knew everything about Li Xiang better than anyone else. So naturally, she did not want Li Xiang to be stained with blood in Chengdu. Besides, these Tom, Dick, and Harry were not qualified for Li Xiang to take action. It was better for her to help Li Xiang solve these small troubles and just treat it as a warning to others. Li Xiang went back in disappointment. These people who followed him were really useless. They couldn't even follow him. Couldn't they be more professional? It seemed that he could only do it next time. When Li Xiang returned to the Lushan Hotel, it was already past 8 o'clock. Gu Xining ran to him and asked, "Where have you been? Why didn't you answer my phone?" Li Xiang's phone was on silent at that time, so he had to explain, "I didn't hear it. I'm back now. Don't worry. Nothing will happen to me." Liangzhe felt that Li Xiang was a little strange, but he couldn't tell what was wrong with him. He shook his head and thought that he might be thinking too much. It was almost time. Li Xiang, Gu Xining, and Sun Tian bid farewell to Liangzhe and Inyu, then left Mount Qingcheng's Six Virtues Hotel and returned to the city. On their way back, they drove Liangzhe's Panamera. After all, Gu Xining's Ferrari was just a two-seater. On the way back, Li Xiang was the driver quietly. Gu Xining and Sun Tian were talking and laughing in the back seat. Because Li Xiang was going to sing in a bar, Gu Xining and Sun Tian said that they would accompany him and drink some wine. Li Xiang just wanted to say that these rich and beautiful people were really too free. Lushan International Community. The family dinner of the Gu family was over. Although they had a good time drinking and chatting, Gu Jiani was not in a good mood. He called his confidant Li Hui and asked, "Still can't get in touch with them?" Li Hui shook his head and said, "I can't get in touch with all three of them. There must be something wrong. I guess something has happened." "How's the investigation on Li Xiang?" Gu Jiani continued to ask. Li Hui replied cautiously, "I still don't have any clues. No one in Chengdu knows them. They only know that they came from the Sichuan-Tibet border. But no one knows where they are. So I guess this identity is also fake. No one knows who they really are." Gu Jiani heard this, threw the teacup in his hand on the ground and scolded, "What can I do with you?" Li Hui kept quiet out of fear, not daring to speak. After a long time, he said, "Boss, Li Xiang is not a simple person. I think his so-called deliverman and bar singer are actually his hidden identities in Chengdu. I heard that he has quit his job and has been following Cece recently. So there's a high chance that he is coming for us. What do you mean by this? Gu Jinni narrowed his eyes and asked. Li Hui said honestly, Boss, I think it's better to let Godfather Ma deal with them directly. Godfather Ma's side is full of experts. It's not difficult for him to deal with such a small figure. We really don't have any way to deal with such a character. What do you think? Li Hui was telling the truth. However, since Li Xiang had come prepared, then he had to take it seriously. This time, he had obviously suffered a loss, and it was even more likely that he had already alerted the enemy. It would be difficult to deal with Li Xiang again. But old Ma's side was different. Letting old Ma handle it would save him a lot of trouble. Moreover, his strength was guaranteed. In the end, he would just have to give up some benefits and owe them a favor. As long as he could quickly settle the Gu family's matters, it didn't matter. Gu Jinni thought about it and hesitated for a long time. Finally, he made a decision and said, I'll call him personally. Asking Godfather Ma to deal with Li Xiang was indeed like using a cannon to kill a mosquito. But it was also very easy for Godfather Ma. It was nothing more than killing an ant. He could just send 2 or 3 experts to deal with Li Xiang. Julian Bridge Bar Street. This place was as lively as usual. It seemed that it was lively all year round. Even during the Chinese New Year, there would be a lot of tourists. Therefore, to have a bar with a good location here, the only thing left was to lie down and earn money. He just needed to enjoy life every day. Li Xiang had thought about this for a long time. He was also very envious of the boss here. He didn't know that the rent here was terrifyingly high. Not every bar could make money. Many of the bars were losing money to earn money. It wouldn't be long before the boss changed. In the bar, Li Xiang had finished singing for half an hour. Other singers might have to rush to another show, but Li Xiang didn't need to because he was only singing here. Brother Chow was very dissatisfied with Li Xiang's work attitude recently. Li Xiang had to think of a way to change his working hours to 11:30 p.m. In this way, he wouldn't need to ask for leave anymore. Brother Chow didn't agree easily. He just said that he would think of a way. In fact, Li Xiang knew that Brother Chow had already agreed. Li Xiang didn't leave after he finished singing. Because Gu Xining and Sun Tian were still downstairs, Li Xiang put down his guitar and ran to their booth. Li Xiang, did you graduate from a music academy in the past? How can your singing be so good? No wonder you were able to charm our family Cece, Sun Tian said with some envy. At this time, she had already become Li Xiang's little fangirl. Moreover, Li Xiang originally had that kind of uncle's aura. Li Xiang didn't answer. Instead, he said, Pour me a glass of wine. My throat is a little dry. Gu Xining didn't want Li Xiang to drink. She replied, You're not in good health. You'd better not drink. It's okay. Anne isn't here anyway. Nobody knows. Besides, I just want to drink 2 glasses. Li Xiang laughed. Gu Xining didn't know what to do with Li Xiang. She could only pour him a glass of beer. The reason why Li Xiang wanted to drink was that those memory fragments appeared again when he was singing. There were more and more people in the memory fragments, and things became clearer and clearer. Li Xiang felt a little scared. He began to resist instinctively. At this time, Sun Tian asked, Li Xiang, why are you named Li Xiang? Do you have a lot of dreams? Gu Xining hadn't thought about this question. She just felt that the name Li Xiang was very comfortable. It was a nice name. Hearing Sun Tian's words, she realized that Li Xiang was a dream. At this time, Li Xiang said, I asked my aunt why I got such a name. Aunt also explained to me, it's not what you think. Other people's Li Xiang may be a dream, but my Li Xiang is actually leaving home. Li Xiang, dream, leaving home. Sun Tian immediately understood and said, I see. Dream is leaving home. However, because Gu Xining knew Li Xiang's story, she subconsciously said, Li Xiang is leaving home. As for who was right, Li Xiang didn't say anything. He just drank silently. The 3 of them didn't stay in the bar for long. Gu Xining sent Li Xiang back first. Sun Tian would stay at Gu Xining's place tonight, so Li Xiang didn't need to worry about anything. At the gate of the community, Gu Xining and Sun Tian didn't leave in a hurry. They watched Li Xiang walk into the community until he disappeared completely. Gu Xining always felt that Li Xiang's back was more and more solemn. What kind of story did he have? They went upstairs and went home. As soon as Li Xiang pushed the door and entered, he found that the light in the house was on. He thought that a thief had broken in. Then he saw his aunt sitting in the living room at this moment. Li Xiang was a little surprised and said, "Aunt, when did you come back? Why didn't you tell me in advance?" At this time, Li Xiang walked to his aunt. Aunt frowned and said, "Did you drink?" Li Xiang was a little embarrassed and said, "Just a little." Aunt didn't scold Li Xiang for breaking the rule of drinking, because she had long known that Li Xiang drank secretly. "With Gu Xining?" Aunt said casually. Li Xiang nodded subconsciously, but he immediately reacted and said, "Aunt, how do you know Gu Xining? Did Ning tell you?" "I haven't seen Ning yet." Aunt said, "I know a lot of things. For example, you have met Gu Xining's uncle and mother, and Gu Xining's father was killed by her uncle Gu Jiani. Gu Jiani is now making trouble for you." After hearing these words, Li Xiang was directly stunned. He said in surprise, "Aunt, how do you know these?" "You don't need to know these. I naturally have a way to know, and it is not difficult," Aunt said lightly. The light in the living room was very dim. Li Xiang couldn't see his aunt's face clearly. He always felt that his aunt's eyes were a little strange. Thinking of those strange memory fragments, Li Xiang wanted to say something, but stopped. He wanted to ask his aunt whether it was true or not, but he was afraid that it was all true. At this time, his aunt took the initiative to say, "Li Xiang, do you want to ask something?" Li Xiang hesitated for a moment and finally gritted his teeth and said, "Aunt, recently I often dream of a lot of strange people and things. Sometimes I can also think of these things in the daytime." "Do you think?" Li Xiang didn't finish his words. At this time, his aunt said bluntly, "These are all true." After hearing his aunt's words, Li Xiang instantly felt as if he had been struck by lightning, and his mind went blank. PZW. Chapter 11:16. Chengdu. Here, how come Li Xiang had never thought that it would be like this? He had always thought that these things were just his imagination. After all, many people might have illusions, just like daydreaming. Besides, he had been seriously ill before, and this might be the sequela of that serious illness, so he needed his aunt to prove that it was really just a dream. However, he didn't expect that the answer his aunt gave him was that all these things were true. Li Xiang also thought that these things might be true. If these things didn't happen, how could they appear in his mind out of nowhere? Moreover, he had lost his memory before, so it was very likely that these things were his previous life. Otherwise, there was no reasonable explanation for this phenomenon. In addition, from many details, he felt that it was more and more possible. For example, the scars on his body, and the reason why he suddenly appeared in the Sichuanabet town and stayed there for 3 years. However, the difference between his previous life and his current life was so great that he couldn't believe that his previous life was so unreachable. If he told anyone who knew him now, they probably wouldn't believe that he used to be so brilliant and that his life was so dramatic and rough. Even Gu Xining couldn't believe it. After all, he was just an ordinary courier and a folk singer who would sing in the bar at night. Apart from that, he had no other identity. However, he used to be the only heir of a top rich and powerful family in Suzhou City, and the future heir of a huge business empire that he didn't even dare to think about, and the rest of the things that he didn't even dare to think about. At this moment, Li Xiang's world collapsed. He started to have a splitting headache. All kinds of memory fragments appeared in his brain explosively, more than ever before, so much that he could not accept it. These memory fragments gradually occupied his brain, as if the man called Qin Sheng had come back and wanted to forcibly drive this man, called Li Xiang, away. Li Xiang began to lose his consciousness. He didn't know whether he was Qin Sheng or Li Xiang, and didn't know whether he was living in the virtual world or the real world. All kinds of illusions appeared in front of him, and all kinds of people appeared in front of him. They were all greeting him, asking him to come back, come back, come back. Li Xiang was in this state the entire time. Even though his aunt saw Li Xiang's pain, she was completely indifferent. She only silently looked at him as if this had nothing to do with her. because she knew that this day would come sooner or later. Once, she hoped that Li Xiang would take the initiative to recover his memory slowly, so that it wouldn't be so painful, and this phenomenon has gradually appeared. However, ever since she went to Beijing, she realized that she couldn't wait any longer. If she waited any longer, it would be too late. Therefore, when she came back this time, she wanted to tell Li Xiang, but she didn't expect that Li Xiang would take the initiative to ask her, so she gave such an answer. Time passed just like that. Aunt just sat on the sofa and quietly looked at Li Xiang. Although she was a little distressed, she also knew that this was inevitable for Li Xiang. Li Xiang was almost curled up on the ground. His whole body was drenched in sweat, as if he had experienced a serious illness, until the pain slowly disappeared. Li Xiang's eyes also began to gradually return to normal. Not knowing how long had passed, Li Xiang finally got up from the ground. His face looked a little pale, and his eyes became more and more vicissitudes. Although it was only a short period of more than an hour, he seemed to have experienced half a century, or more, like he went through the first half of his life again. He sat on the opposite of his aunt again. His eyes were not as blank as before. At this moment, his eyes were very firm, and there was a kind of light that could even penetrate people's hearts. Was he Li Xiang or Qin Sheng? Perhaps only he knew. Li Xiang finally opened his mouth and asked, "How are they?" Aunt did not directly answer, but only said, "Whether they are good or not, won't you know when you see them?" Although Li Xiang asked in this way, Aunt did not know whether he was Li Xiang or Qin Sheng. What she was most afraid of was that Li Xiang could not accept these facts and finally became insane. Now it seemed that the situation was good. At least he had accepted the past. Li Xiang replied very calmly, "Yes, whether they're good or not. What's the point?" Aunt still could not help but ask, "Are you Li Xiang or Qin Sheng?" "Li Xiang, so what? Qin Sheng, so what?" Li Xiang and Qin Sheng both existed before, so Li Xiang and Qin Sheng are also me, Li Xiang said. Aunt was a little speechless, and obviously, Qin Sheng was not Li Xiang. Aunt asked directly, "When will you go back to Beijing?" Hearing this, Li Xiang was not surprised. He hesitated for a moment and replied, "I will go back when it is necessary. After all, 1 or 2 days will not make a difference." After saying this, Li Xiang said directly that he was a little tired and went to have a rest first, and then directly stood up and left. Late at night, in the city of Beijing, a middle-aged man could not sleep. It could be said that he was so excited that he did not want to sleep at all. When Elder Long's side was defeated again and again, the real heir actually became Elder Long's scapegoat. Now, he was even confined in Hong Kong, unable to return to China, and these players who originally had no chance of winning suddenly became the seeded players. However, it was far from easy to become the helmsman of this circle, and Elder Long would not casually give the power to any one of them. Everyone could see what Elder Long wanted, and that was the life of the only heir of the Qin family. This was the only reason why Elder Long did not want to die. Otherwise, he might have already passed away. When in Beidei, Elder Long had made it very clear that whoever completed this task would be the future leader. The middle-aged man had been working hard in this circle for most of his life, and now he finally had the chance to soar to the sky. Moreover, he had found a trace of that man earlier than anyone else, and this time he was determined to get it. Late at night, in Dalva No. 1, north of Yuan Park, this was a famous mansion in Suzhou City, and the people who could live here were either rich or noble. The Qin family also had a house here, but they hardly lived here. This was supposed to be Song Ruyu's and Qin Sheng's wedding house, because it was closer to Song Ruyu's workplace. However, Qin Sheng suddenly disappeared, and it had been 3 years since then. However, Song Ryu did not give up. She had long regarded herself as the daughter-in-law of the Qin family, so she renovated the house and finally lived here alone. She just wanted to wait for Qin Sheng to come back. The big mansion was a little empty, and Song Ryu was the only one left in the house, except for the 2 nannies. The 2 nannies had also been servants of the Qin family for many years, and were personally selected by Zhao Anji to take care of Song Ryu. Song Ryu did not say anything about this, as she had never cared about such trivial things. Late at night, Song Ryu was not sleepy. She stood alone in the study, overlooking the Yuantan Park outside. The study here was much larger than the one in her house. She had moved all the things in her previous study here, and the rest were Qin Sheng's things, many of which were things he had left in Shanghai. This seemed to be the only way to make her feel Qin Sheng's existence and not feel so lonely. Some people thought that Song Ryu was stupid, while others thought that she was stubborn. Whether it was the Song family or the Qin family, they all tried to persuade Song Ryu, saying that Qin Sheng might be dead and that she should not continue to wait. However, Song Ryu refused. She just wanted to wait until she was unwilling to wait. Today, she had finally waited. Just like that, she had waited for 3 whole years. Was 3 years long? It was very long, and every day felt like a year. Was 3 years short? It was also very short, as if it had passed in the blink of an eye. It seemed that compared to the next few decades, these 3 years were nothing. After a long time, Song Ryu stopped looking at him and said lightly, "Qin Sheng, I miss you very much. I miss you very much. Chengdu, here I come." Chapter 11:17. It was a new day. The sun was shining brightly, and the weather was fine. However, it was too humid in Chengdu in summer. Li Xiang was still the same Li Xiang. Although he had accepted the fact that he used to be Qin Sheng, he didn't want to be Qin Sheng, so he was still Li Xiang. Or perhaps, he still had more to consider. This time, Li Xiang slept until 11 o'clock. He hadn't slept for so long, and it had been a long time since he had slept so comfortably. A few days ago, he often dreamed of the people and things in the memory fragments, but he didn't dream of anything yesterday. Maybe he had already known what he should know. Li Xiang didn't see his aunt when he got up. Seeing 2 calls from Gu Xining, he called her back. Gu Xining asked him to go shopping with her in the afternoon, and Li Xiang agreed without thinking much. Li Xiang thought that his aunt went to the bookstore, so he went to the bookstore directly after washing up. However, he found that only Ning was in the bookstore, and his aunt was not there. This was not right. Where did his aunt go? "Ning, didn't you see my aunt?" Li Xiang asked. Li Xiang was not the same Li Xiang when he saw Ning again. However, his feelings for Ning were still the same. In the past, he thought that Ning had a hard life and wanted to change something, but he couldn't. But now he could completely change her fate. If they really left Chengdu, he would ask for Ning's opinion. Whether Ning was willing to go to Beijing with them or not, he would arrange everything well. He would never let this poor girl suffer anymore, because he had the ability. Ning answered honestly, "Yes, but my aunt said that she was going to meet a friend and would come back in the evening. She told us to leave her alone for dinner." Li Xiang didn't say anything. He took a book and sat on the bed in a daze. Ning always felt that Li Xiang was a little strange today, as if he was a little different from usual. However, she couldn't tell what was wrong. She just felt that he was a little strange. It was not surprising that Ning had this feeling, because Li Xiang was not Li Xiang anymore, but Qin Sheng. Li Xiang ordered takeout for lunch. Today, the takeout he ordered was very sumptuous. It could be said that it was a seafood feast, which cost him more than 1,000 yuan. When everything had been revealed, would Li Xiang still be short of money in the future? What he should be thinking about was how to spend all the money. Li Xiang felt that it was ridiculous. Just a while ago, he was still envious of other rich people. He was still thinking about what he would do if he became rich in the future. Suddenly, those goals were meaningless because for him, those goals were in the past, and he could easily achieve thousands of such goals. Li Xiang suddenly felt that life was a bit boring. When Ning went upstairs and saw so much seafood on the table, she was a little stunned. She had only eaten seafood a few times in her life. Why did Li Xiang suddenly order such a sumptuous seafood takeout today? Ning said with a confused look, "Brother Li Xiang, did you win the lottery?" When Li Xiang saw Ning's expression and heard Ning's words, he instantly understood what Ning was thinking. He didn't know whether to laugh or cry as he walked towards Ning. He said, "If I had such luck, would we still need to open a shop?" Ning thought about it and agreed. The probability was too small, but what happened to Li Xiang today? Today, there was only her and Li Xiang. Why was the takeaway so sumptuous? Usually, Even if they went out to eat, they would only go to a tiny restaurant. How could they dare to be so extravagant? Suddenly, Ning thought of something terrible. Could it be Gu Xining? Ning covered her mouth and said, Li Xiang, are you being kept by Gu Xining, that fair, rich, and beautiful woman? After saying this, Ning didn't expect that she would blurt it out. If it was on a normal day, she would definitely not dare to say such words. But what was wrong with her today? Li Xiang didn't expect that such words would come out of Ning's mouth. Was this his image in Ning's mind? Or did Ning have some misunderstanding about him recently? In Ning's mind, as an old single dog, he didn't have anything he wanted. If a fair, rich, and beautiful woman suddenly appeared, it was very likely that he would fall for her. But how could she know that her current brother Li Xiang was not someone who could be kept by anyone? Even in the whole country, how many people could afford to keep him? Even if he had to be kept, it should be Gu Xining, right? Li Xiang was a little helpless. He directly hit Ning on the head and said, What are you thinking? Is your brother Li Xiang that kind of person? If you don't eat, I will throw all these away. Ning didn't dare to think anymore. This was a sumptuous seafood feast, but she still muttered in her heart that something was wrong. When her aunt came back, she must tell the secret about him and Gu Xining. Otherwise, she was really afraid that brother Li Xiang would go astray. While they were eating, Li Xiang suddenly looked up and said, Ning, have you ever thought about leaving Chengdu? Ning was eating crab. She was stunned for a few seconds and said, Brother Li Xiang, why do you ask this? If I leave Chengdu with my aunt one day, will you go with us? Li Xiang asked directly. Ning suddenly found that the crab in her hand didn't taste good anymore. Because these years, except for her mother, she had never met anyone who was so nice to her. If it weren't for her aunt and brother Li Xiang, she didn't know what her life would be like. Brother Li Xiang, are you and aunt leaving? Ning asked with red eyes. Li Xiang didn't deny it. He said truthfully, even if I don't leave now, I will leave one day. Ning had never thought about leaving Chengdu, because she had lived here since she was a child. Her relatives, friends, and classmates were also here. Until now, she hadn't even been to other provinces, so she had never thought about leaving. If it was someone else who asked, Ning might refuse without hesitation. But it was her aunt and brother Li Xiang. Ning was a little hesitant. Seeing that Ning was hesitating, Li Xiang didn't think much and replied, Haha, don't think too much. Hurry up and eat. I'm just saying. After dinner, when Li Xiang was cleaning up, there was a sudden noise downstairs. A few hooligans broke into the bookstore and shouted angrily, Is your boss here? Ning was sorting out the books. She turned around subconsciously and saw this group of people. Suddenly, she found that these people were a little familiar. They seemed to be the hooligans who came to ask for money last time. But this time, there were more people than last time. Could it be that her father, the gambler, lost money again and they came to ask for money? Thinking of this, Ning was a little flustered. She really hated her father, the gambler. If it weren't for him, her mother wouldn't have committed suicide. If it weren't for him, the first half of her life wouldn't have been so miserable. If it weren't for him, she wouldn't have been almost sold. Fortunately, she met her aunt and brother Li Xiang. It was them who changed her fate. She wouldn't have been sold by her biological father as a wife. It should be known that she graduated from Sichuan University. Otherwise, her life would have been ruined. Thinking of this, Ning felt that if brother Li Xiang and her aunt wanted to leave Chengdu, she would definitely leave with them. She was willing to work for her aunt and brother Li Xiang for the rest of her life. A hooligan walked directly to Ning and asked, Beauty, I asked you a question. Where's your boss? Ning didn't understand. She trembled a little and stepped back subconsciously. At this time, Li Xiang happened to come down. He didn't see the people behind him. He directly shouted, What do you want? Seeing that Li Xiang had come down, the hooligan quickly shouted to the big brother behind him, Big brother, he is here. At this time, Li Xiang observed carefully and found that this group of people was actually the hooligans who lent money and collected usury in the tea house. He never thought it would be them. Why did they come here? Li Xiang also thought, could it be that Ning's father, the gambler, lost money again, and these people came to ask for money again? They really think of themselves as a money tree. Thinking of this, Li Xiang said angrily. I remember last time I said that if Ning Hai continues to gamble and owes usury, it's his own business. But if you dare to find on Ning again, then don't blame me for being rude. The one in the middle of these hooligans was the muscular man with a big gold chain in the tea house that day. Li Xiang remembered that his name seemed to be Jin Zhu. Jin Zhu was still wearing a tight t-shirt today. The muscles all over his body were full of visual effect, and the gold chain around his neck was even more conspicuous. However, he knew that he was no match for the strange man in front of him. Moreover, he didn't come to ask for money today. Brother, you misunderstood. Absolutely misunderstood. Jin Zhu quickly walked over and said. Li Xiang frowned and said, What do you mean? Jin Zhu smiled and handed a cigarette to Li Xiang. He explained, We didn't come to find on Ning today, and we didn't come to ask for money or anything. Ning Hai, that bastard, was driven away by me. I also went out to spread the word that whoever dares to let Ning Hai gamble and borrow usury from Ning Hai, if I find out, I will break one of your legs. Don't worry. Then what are you here for today? Li Xiang was very confused. Jin Zhu said with a smile, Brother, I know that you're good at martial arts, so I recommended you to my boss. My boss wants to meet you. He said that if you are really good, he will recommend you to Master Chun. Jin Zhu was afraid that Li Xiang didn't know who Master Chun was, so he took the opportunity to explain. Do you know Master Chun? He is a top figure in Chengdu, and there is nothing that he can't solve. If you follow Master Chun, you will definitely be successful. That's why I came to find you. Li Xiang was a little confused. This was what was going on. But who was this Master Chun? Didn't they say that Master Ma, who was standing behind Gu Jiani, was the big boss in Chengdu? And that Master Zhao? Li Xiang suddenly didn't understand. Chapter 11:18. Since ancient times, Li Xiang knew that there were many Brother Pao. However, there was Master Zhao and Master Ma before, and now there was Master Chun. Li Xiang was confused. Everyone said that he was a big shot, but who was the real big shot? Moreover, what did these big shots have to do with him? If it was in the past, Li Xiang would have been worried that Gu Jiani would find Master Ma to target him, and he would have been afraid of it, so he would have latched on a Master Chun. However, after last night, Li Xiang was no longer the same Li Xiang. Even if the Master Zhao that Liang Zhe mentioned appeared, he would not be afraid at all. Master Zhao? Li Xiang seemed to have figured out his identity. If he was really the person that Liang Zhe mentioned, then everything would be very simple. Li Xiang wanted to reject him directly, but he suddenly changed his mind. If Master Chun went against Master Ma, what would happen? Who would be more powerful? Thinking of this, Li Xiang said to Jin Zhu directly, I don't have time to see your boss. If you go to see Master Chun directly, I will think about it. Jin Zhu was stunned after hearing this. Before Jin Zhu could reply, one of Jin Zhu's underlings shouted, Brother, you are too arrogant. Why don't you weigh yourself first? You want to see Master Chun directly? Is Master Chun someone you can see whenever you want? We're not qualified. Who do you think you are? Then there is nothing to talk about? Li Xiang said disapprovingly. At this time, Jin Zhu came back to his senses and said with a smile, Li Xiang, this is a bit inappropriate. Even if I want you to kill Master Chun, I don't have the ability. You have to meet my boss first. Jin Zhu recommended Li Xiang to his boss. Of course, it was all for his own sake. First of all, if Li Xiang was really recommended by his boss to Master Chun, then his status in front of his boss would also rise. Moreover, if Li Xiang became successful in the future, he would have a good life. If his boss didn't like him, then he would pretend that nothing happened. After hearing this, Li Xiang thought about it and agreed. Jin Zhu was just a small character. He really didn't have the ability. After thinking for a while, Li Xiang said directly, I will only give your boss an hour. I have to go shopping with my girlfriend in the afternoon. When Jin Zhu heard this, he was secretly delighted. He said that he would go out and make a phone call and asked Li Xiang to wait for a moment. Li Xiang found a random seat and sat down. Seeing that Ning was a little scared behind him, he explained, Ning, it's okay. I'm not here to collect the debt. Go ahead with your business. Don't be afraid. I'm here. Although Ning heard this, she was still a little afraid. After all, the bookstore was full of hooligans. How could you not be afraid? Li Xiang roughly understood and scolded them with a smile. If you don't want to buy books or flowers, can you go out and wait? Don't stand here and be an eyesore. Who would dare to come in when they see you? Li Xiang's words were a little arrogant, and these hoodlums were a little annoyed, but because of Li Xiang's skills, they didn't dare to be presumptuous. Li Xiang continued to scold. Big eye and small eye, I'm talking to you. What are you staring at? Do you want to be beaten? And the one wearing tight pants, do you have no money to buy clothes? Aren't you afraid of strangling your balls? If you don't get out, don't blame me for practicing on you. He couldn't win in a fight, and he couldn't win in an argument either. These hoodlums had no choice but to leave the bookstore obediently in the end. They muttered in their hearts, I'm a great man. I'll forgive you this time. To these people, Li Xiang really didn't need to be polite. A few minutes later, Jinju hurriedly ran in. The weather outside was indeed a little hot, and Jinju's forehead was full of sweat. His body was probably too weak. Jin, after coming, he said, Li Xiang, my boss happens to have time now. Let's go there. Okay. Li Xiang didn't talk much and directly agreed. Jinju immediately drove Li Xiang to see his boss. He was quite concerned about this matter. After all, it was related to his future. On the way, Jinju kept reminding Li Xiang to be low-key when he saw his boss. Don't be as arrogant as before. Otherwise, if something happened, he wouldn't be able to protect him. Li Xiang didn't take it to heart at all. About half an hour later, they arrived at a fight club on the edge of the third ring road. This fight club was opened by Jinju's boss. He would come here to practice almost every week. Many of his fierce subordinates were trained here. After Jinju parked the car, he brought Li Xiang in. Other people weren't qualified to enter, so they obediently waited in the car. At the entrance of the club, Li Xiang and Jinju were searched. After all, Jinju's boss was still a small figure in Chengdu. He had offended many people, so he was more cautious. This fight club was a converted small factory. Upstairs was a fitness club, and downstairs was a fight club. However, if Jinju's boss didn't come, the fight club wouldn't receive other people. After Li Xiang came in, he found that there were 5 or 6 rings inside. On each ring, there were fighters wearing boxing clothes sparring. Their skills seemed to be pretty good. They were definitely more powerful than ordinary people. Just their muscles were enough to scare a lot of people. In the middle of the ring, a more mature man wearing sportswear was drinking tea. This man looked to be in his 30s. His figure was well-maintained, and his exposed muscles were full of visual effects. Li Xiang didn't need to guess to know that he was Jinju's boss. Only Jinju's boss could have this kind of extravagance. After all, there was a beautiful woman sitting next to him, but she was also wearing very hot clothes. Her upper body was wearing a low-cut black short-sleeved shirt, and her lower body was wearing short hot pants that could not be shorter. Her body was full of curves, and many men were sneaking glances at her, but they only dared to do so. After all, she was Boss Jinju's woman, and they did not dare to mess around. Jinju brought Li Xiang over slowly. Before he got close, he was stopped by 2 of his boss's subordinates. Both of them were muscular men. It seemed like Jinju's boss liked muscular men. Big brother, I've brought the person. Jinju still had some confidence in front of Li Xiang, but in front of his big brother, he couldn't be any more obedient, just like a mouse seeing a cat. The big brother was still watching the match on the stage. He didn't even raise his head and said perfunctorily, "You're here." Although Jinju followed this big brother, he didn't have any qualifications in front of him. He was a dispensable character. If he didn't recommend Li Xiang, his big brother probably wouldn't want to see him for 10 days or half a month. After all, the things that Jinju did were too low-level. Jinju nodded and bowed. Yes, I'm here. Big brother, you see, the big brother still didn't turn his head and said, "You go, I'll talk to him." Jinju was stunned for a few seconds when he heard this. He wanted to talk to his big brother about other things, but he didn't expect his big brother to drive him away. Moreover, he was afraid that Li Xiang would offend his big brother. If he was present, he could ease the atmosphere. Most importantly, he was afraid that Li Xiang would implicate him. Jinju said timidly, "Big brother, this." The big brother coldly snorted, "Yes." Jinju was shocked. It was obvious that his big brother was angry. He quickly said, Okay. Big brother, you go ahead with your business. I'll leave first. When Jinju left, he looked at Li Xiang calmly. His eyes seemed to say, Brother, you better pray for your own good. You asked for it, I can't help you anymore. After Jinju left, the big brother said slowly, You're Li Xiang? Li Xiang had been ignored all the time. He felt a little uncomfortable in his heart. He was just a small fry. Why did he put on airs? There were so many pretentious people in this world. I'm Li Xiang. Li Xiang replied disdainfully. His eyes were also on the stage. He didn't even look at the big brother. The big brother continued, Do you want to see Master Chen? It doesn't matter whether I see him or not. Li Xiang laughed. This sentence completely angered Jin Zhu's big brother. Even the beauty frowned slightly when she heard this, because this young man's words were indeed a little arrogant. That's Master Chen. Who do you think you are? The big brother finally turned his head. Seeing that Li Xiang didn't have any intention to talk to him, he couldn't help but feel a little angry. He sneered and said, You're a little arrogant, Li Xiang said faintly. I have the capital. After he said this, the big brother's face changed instantly. With just a glance, the two muscular men standing beside him almost didn't hesitate and directly rushed towards Li Xiang. Li Xiang didn't want to be polite with them. He came here to kill time. If he didn't provoke them, how could he get to the main topic? When the big brother's two subordinates made their move, Li Xiang had already made the first move. His speed was so fast that the two men couldn't even react. He took advantage of the situation and bent down. He punched the chin of the man on the left. The man was directly forced to take a few steps back. It could be seen how powerful Li Xiang's attack was. At this time, the man on the right reacted and made his move. However, Li Xiang had already grabbed his arm. Then, Li Xiang exerted strength from the soles of his feet and jumped high. He directly hit the chest of this man with his knee and sent him flying. All of this happened in the blink of an eye. Jin Zhu's big brother also came back to his senses. He realized that something was wrong. But just when he stood up, Li Xiang was already holding a pen in his hand. The pen head was directly pressed against the big brother's neck. He didn't even have the chance to fight back. Li Xiang was no longer the Li Xiang of the past. This big brother's subordinates could only deal with ordinary people. But when they encountered a ruthless character like Li Xiang, they were simply trash. They were even weaker than his previous bodyguards. Who the hell are you? The big brother squinted his eyes and asked. As for the hot beauty beside the big brother, she was so scared that she lost her voice and screamed. The movement here was too big. It attracted the attention of everyone present. When they saw this scene, everyone was shocked. Almost all of them subconsciously rushed over and directly surrounded Li Xiang. Li Xiang asked faintly, How should I address you? You Kai. Jin Zhu's big brother replied in a deep voice. Although he was shocked by the man in front of him, he wasn't afraid. Even if Yukai made a move on him, he wouldn't be able to get out of here today. Yukai really didn't expect that a man introduced by Jin Zhu would have such strength. He didn't take it seriously at first, but now he had no choice but to take it seriously. Could it be that he was sent by the enemy to kill me? Or his ultimate goal was Master Chen? After all, the person he wanted to see was Master Chen. Li Xiang said in a low voice, Nice name. What do you want? Yukai continued to ask. Li Xiang laughed and said, I said that I have the capital. You didn't believe me. Do you believe me now? Yukai didn't dare to not believe him. He said calmly, I believe you. Hearing this, Li Xiang was satisfied. He directly let go of the pen in his hand and said with a smile, Can we talk now? Yukai didn't expect it to be a false alarm. He couldn't understand the man in front of him, but his strength and courage had already conquered him. Chapter 11:19. Li Xiang used to wonder why he was so good at fighting. He had never practiced before. Most of the time, it was just an instinctive reaction. In the end, he slowly got used to it. Once, he asked his aunt if he had been a soldier or a bodyguard. Otherwise, how could he be so good at fighting? His aunt smiled and told him that he used to be a peerless expert. He was chased by his enemies, so he ended up here. Li Xiang was skeptical at first because he lost his memory and couldn't remember the past. But later on, he didn't believe it at all. How could it be possible? But from then on, when his aunt had nothing to do, she would teach him some martial arts. At that time, he knew that his aunt was the real, peerless master, just like those hidden masters in the TV series, not to mention that his aunt was so beautiful. Now, Li Xiang finally understood why he was so good at fighting. It turned out that he had been practicing since he was young. It turned out that he had escaped from the gates of hell many times. It turned out that all of these were actual combat experience. No wonder he was so good. Li Xiang thought about it again. After receiving his aunt's teachings, did he become more powerful than before? That was why Li Xiang was so confident today. He really had the capital to do so. He really didn't take Yu Kai seriously. He just wanted to watch a good show. Li Xiang conquered Yu Kai with his strength. If Yu Kai used the human wave tactic to get back at him, he would really lose his face. He stood up awkwardly and said, "Nothing, we were just joking. You guys go do your own things." The others were a little confused, but they didn't continue to ask. They could only leave obediently. As for Yu Kai's two subordinates, they had already gone down to take care of their wounds. Yu Kai did not allow anyone else to approach. He suddenly had the intention to take Li Xiang as his confidant. If that was the case, wouldn't his strength skyrocket in the future? Still not getting up? Yu Kai stared at the female companion beside him. She really didn't know how to read people. The hot beauty got up with some hidden bitterness. She stood beside Yu Kai and snorted coldly. Li Xiang did not stand on ceremony and sat down naturally. Then he glanced at the beautiful woman with a hot body. Those with money and power would never lack beauties like this. After all, life was sometimes too hard. No one could always stick to their original intentions. In the end, they could only choose to take that shortcut. Yu Kai found that Li Xiang was staring at the beauty beside him. He thought that Li Xiang liked this kind of beauty. Since he liked you, it would be easy. He directly pushed the beauty over and said, "Come, Yu, sit on your brother Li Xiang's lap." The beauty called Yu didn't expect Yu Kai to do this, but she didn't dare to go against Yu Kai's will. She awkwardly sat on Li Xiang's lap, looking very embarrassed. Li Xiang was not polite at all. He directly placed his hand on Yu's slender and beautiful legs, gently stroking and playing with them. When his legs came into contact with Yu's skin, Yu subconsciously trembled. She did not expect this man to be so presumptuous in front of Yu Kai. Yu Kai's expression changed slightly, although he felt a little uncomfortable in his heart. What was a woman to him? Li Xiang did this to test Yu Kai's bottom line. "Li Xiang, what do you say? Are you willing to follow me? I can guarantee that you will have a meteoric rise, and you will not lack anything in the future." Yu Kai said directly. Li Xiang laughed and said, "Brother, I just said that I want to see Master Chun. What do you mean by asking me to stay by your side?" "Li Xiang, I am cherishing talent. With your skills, you can do well wherever you go. I naturally have to seize the opportunity." Yu Kai said truthfully. Said Yu Kai. Li Xiang shook his head and said, "I'm sorry, I want to see Master Chun. Even if I stay by your side, do you think you can keep me?" This was the truth. Yu Kai could see that Li Xiang was very ambitious. Obviously, it was impossible for him to stay by his side. Even if he stayed, he would leave sooner or later. There is no room for discussion. "I can give you everything you want," Yu Kai said somewhat unwillingly. At the same time, he glanced at Yu. His meaning was very clear. Li Xiang just smiled lightly and did not reply. Yu Kai also knew that there was no other way. In his eyes, Li Xiang was definitely a person. However, he still had to investigate Li Xiang's background. He could not introduce everyone to Master Chun. "Okay, go back and wait for my call." Yu Kai thought for a while and said so. Li Xiang was very satisfied when he heard this. He smiled and said, "Thank you, brother." Then he pushed Yu away and left directly. After all, it seemed to be more interesting to go shopping with beauties. He had not gone shopping with beauties for a long time. What he especially enjoyed was the envious and jealous looks from other men. After Li Xiang left, Yu Kai sighed and said, "How arrogant." Yu was a little angry and ignored Yu Kai. Yu Kai smiled and coaxed her for a while. Women were nothing more than satisfying what they wanted. Then Yu Kai called his confidant and asked him to investigate Li Xiang's background. Chuanxi Road, Chengdu. This was always the most lively place in Chengdu. Of course, this was also the place with the most beauties in Chengdu, because the most prosperous shopping malls in Chengdu were gathered here. Chengdu, Yuanyang Tai Li, Chuanguang Square, crystal fusion, and so on. The street photography in Tai Li was famous far and wide. Every day, countless photographers took photos of beauties in the street. Chengdu and Yuanyang Tai Li were also famous luxury shopping malls in the whole Southwest. Every year, they were ranked at the top of the national shopping malls. Gu Xining came here to go shopping today. She had been waiting for Li Xiang in Tai Li for a long time. Unfortunately, Li Xiang was late because he went to see Yu Kai. As a result, many photographers chased after her. In the end, Gu Xining hid in a luxury store that she often went shopping in. She did not like to be photographed like this. When Li Xiang rushed over, Gu Xining, who was in a bad mood, had already bought several things in this store. When she saw Li Xiang, she said unhappily, "You pay." Li Xiang was not Li Xiang anymore. Li Xiang felt it was quite interesting to see Gu Xining again. If he did not know what happened in the past, he might really fall in love with this girl after spending a long time with Gu Xining. But the current Li Xiang would definitely not do that, because he owed too many love debts. How could he hurt Gu Xining again? Therefore, he only wanted to help Gu Xining solve the problems in her family. After all, this girl treated him quite well. Li Xiang said with a cheeky smile, "Rich woman, you know that I am poor. I am your sugar daddy. How can I have money? These things are too expensive. Even if you sell me, it will not be enough." The waiters in this luxury store were all well-mannered. They just smiled and looked at Gu Xining and Li Xiang. Moreover, they were quite familiar with Gu Xining and could be counted as regular customers here. They had never seen Gu Xining go shopping with a man, so they were quite surprised to see Li Xiang today. Anyone could see that Li Xiang was Gu Xining's boyfriend, but they could also see that Li Xiang was older than Gu Xining. However, Li Xiang's temperament made them feel that Li Xiang did not look like a poor man. They felt that Li Xiang was joking on purpose. "Humph, then why don't you help me carry the bag?" Gu Xining said unhappily. Without saying anything, Li Xiang immediately went up to help Gu Xining carry the bag. Physical work was naturally done by men. Women only needed to enjoy themselves. In the end, Gu Xining swiped her card naturally. Tens of thousands of yuan were gone, just like that. Looking at Li Xiang, she felt a little sorry. The waiters didn't expect that Gu Xining would pay the bill herself. Could it be that this man really lived off a woman? When they walked out of this store, Gu Xining bought sunglasses for both her and Li Xiang. In this way, they could escape from those boring photographers. Today, Li Xiang was very relaxed. He did not have the pressure that he had when he was with Gu Xining. Now he would not feel pressure in front of most people. When they were shopping, Li Xiang smiled and helped Gu Xining to consult. Gu Xining did not expect that Li Xiang had such a good taste. He had a unique understanding of major brands. This made Gu Xining wonder what Li Xiang did before. Was he also in the sales of luxury goods? Later, Gu Xining began to look at Li Xiang. The more she looked at him, the more she found that today Li Xiang seemed to be a little different from usual. However, she could not tell what was different. She always felt that his temperament had changed again. It seemed that he was more experienced than before. When they found a coffee shop to rest, Gu Xining held her chin and kept staring at Li Xiang. Li Xiang felt a little funny and said, "Is there something on my face?" "You are a little strange today," Gu Xining replied directly. Li Xiang was a little surprised. Did she really see something? "I'm not strange. You are so suspicious." Li Xiang shook his head and said. Gu Xining thought for a while and said, "Did my uncle look for you again?" "No, but I do want to find your uncle. But let's talk about it after I finish something," Li Xiang said with great interest. Gu Xining asked, "What is it?" "I won't tell you now," Li Xiang said with a smile. Gu Xining felt that Li Xiang was deliberately mystifying, so she ignored him. She was a little hungry now, so she was going to take Li Xiang to find a place to eat. In the evening, when they were having dinner, Li Xiang took the initiative to tell Gu Xining that he would treat her mother to dinner tomorrow. Gu Xining was a little surprised. She did not know what Li Xiang meant. Li Xiang accompanied Gu Xining all the time. He did not leave until it was almost time. Gu Xining said that she would not accompany him tonight because she had something to do. Li Xiang did not say anything. In fact, after night, he would not go to Jiyin Bridge to sing because it was not necessary. However, He had to finish what he started. It was appropriate to say goodbye to Brother Chow and the bar after he sang the last song tonight. When he went to Juyin Bridge in the evening, Li Xiang's mood was different from usual. He walked to the door of a very familiar bar. He had passed this bar almost every day recently, but he did not expect that he had such a deep relationship with this bar, because he had met her in this very bar. From then on, their lives intersected. From then on, they became each other's concern. But now, she was in the United States, and he was in Chengdu. He did not know whether she was doing well or not. Li Xiang stopped for a few minutes, and then went to the bar where he was going to sing. It would be difficult to see Li Xiang singing in a bar with a guitar on his back in the future. When Li Xiang wanted to sing in a bar, a beautiful woman who came all the way from Beijing quietly stood at the door of the bar, which attracted a lot of attention. Because this beautiful woman's aura was very strong, people did not dare to look at her directly, and they even took the initiative to avoid her. She finally came. She had waited for this day for 3 years. Chapter 11:20. The night is too beautiful. That's the game of gods. In your heart, there are thousands of miles of mountains and seas galloping. The city is too beautiful. How much it belongs to you. In your heart, there are thousands of horses galloping. On the third floor of the bar, Li Xiang was singing a song by a band he liked a lot. He changed the song slightly and sang it with a very deep voice. He was like a middle-aged man who had experienced the vicissitudes of life, standing on the roof of a skyscraper at night, drinking a bottle of cheap white wine, smoking a pack of cheap cigarettes that only cost a few yuan, looking at the bustling city, lamenting the fact that he had accomplished nothing in the first half of his life. He had already told Brother Chow that after tonight, he would not come here to sing anymore. Surprisingly, Brother Chow did not scold him. He seemed to understand that Li Xiang would not sing here for the rest of his life. After all, this kind of life was too insecure. He thought that Li Xiang had found a more suitable job, but he did not ask much. Most of the people here were just passers-by, whether they were tourists in a hurry, wandering singers with guitars on their backs, or bands playing in small groups. Every city had its own characteristics, and Jian Bridge was destined to be one of Chengdu's characteristics. Just when Li Xiang was about to sing, at this moment, there was an elegant beauty staring at him with gentle eyes at the staircase. She looked at him quietly with a faint smile on her face. Her eyes were firm and gentle, as if she did not want to move her eyes away from Li Xiang for even half a second. It had been 3 years. She had waited for 3 years, as if she wanted to make up for those 3 years, as if she was afraid that she would not be able to see this man in front of her the next second. After 3 years, her heart had become strong enough, so strong that she exuded an aura that repelled people thousands of miles away. Passers-by did not even dare to look at her. They would actively avoid her, let alone talk to her. Of course, it might also be because of the extremely dangerous middle-aged man standing behind her. The middle-aged man's temperament was just like those middle-aged men on TV or in the movies, exuding a sense of maturity and confidence. However, this middle-aged man's eyes were very sharp. He did not look at the young singer on the stage, who was once very familiar with him. Instead, he observed the environment around the woman. If anyone dared to approach the woman, the uncle would give them a warning with his sharp eyes, which scared those people away from them. Such a combination was strange. Such a combination did not look like ordinary people. Who would dare to provoke them? When Li Xiang finished singing on the stage, the middle-aged man asked thoughtfully, "Aren't you going in?" The woman smiled and shook her head. "Don't worry. I've waited for 3 years. I don't mind waiting a little longer." The middle-aged man didn't say much. He had never been able to influence this woman's thoughts. Since the disappearance of this young man, he had been protecting this woman in front of him. This was his atonement. On the stage, Li Xiang did not notice what was happening at the staircase. He continued to sing quietly, enjoying his last moments of peace. Meanwhile, on the top floor of the Shangri-La Hotel opposite the Nine Eyes Bridge, a man and a woman were staring at the Nine Eyes Bridge in a daze. From their gazes, they seemed to be staring at the bar where Li Xiang sang. One of them was Li Xiang's aunt. Today, she was wearing a white dress. She did not disguise herself, but revealed her original appearance. Beautiful and stunning. Extremely beautiful. It seemed that there were no words to describe her. On the top floor at night, the wind was a little strong. It blew up her dress and hair. If one did not look carefully, if one did not see the wrinkles at the corners of her eyes, it would be impossible to guess this woman's age. It seemed that 30 was the limit. Standing next to the woman, the old man bent his body and asked, "Has he regained his memory?" The old man looked a little thin, as if he could be blown away by the wind. The most obvious sign on him was the hat he was wearing. His life was less than 100 years old. The old man was already 70 years old. He was none other than Qin Changxing, the current pillar of the Qin family. Since Qin Chang'an's imprisonment and Qin Sheng's disappearance, Qin Changxing had shouldered the banner of the Qin family's rise and fall. After all, he had escaped for so many years, and now it was time to pay the debt. Aunt shook her head and smiled bitterly. Yes, he has recovered. He just doesn't want to admit it. Qin Changxing said calmly. There is always a process, but the result is the same. He is Qin Sheng, and he can only be Qin Sheng. Aunt asked casually. This time, you gave the opportunity to Song Ruyu? Qin Changxing explained honestly, it has been 3 years. It's time to give the Song family an explanation. If it were not for Ruyu's insistence, the Song family would not have supported our Qin family so much. I made a promise to old Master Song, and now I finally keep my promise. Aunt said disapprovingly. How do you know that he doesn't want to see other women? What about Lin Su, Qinger, or Su Qin? Qin Changxing did not know whether to laugh or cry. He said, this guy owes too many love debts. What can I do? Anyway, they will meet sooner or later, and I am not in a hurry. This time, I will give the opportunity to Ruyu. After all, she will be the hostess of the Qin family in the future. Aunt deliberately said, do you have the final say on this matter, or him? They are engaged. What do you think? Of course, Qin Changxing knew what his sister was asking. Aunt sneered and said, but Lin Su has given birth to a child for Qin Sheng, and this child carries the bloodline of the Qin family. Qin Changxing said with some emotion, to be honest, I finally understood why you took him away for 3 years and forced him to lose his memory for 3 years. If you didn't do that, he would have had a hard time in the past 3 years. In the past 3 years, Li Xiang happened to avoid a storm and also solve his love problem in a roundabout way, which saved the Qin family a lot of trouble. Otherwise, the Qin family would not be able to give an explanation to the Zhu family or the Song family. Qin Sheng really buried a time bomb for the Qin family. When Qin Changxing knew about it, he was really shocked. Fortunately, in the past 3 years, most of the troubles have been solved. Aunt shook her head and said, I didn't think that much. Qin Changxing didn't ask further, because this little sister was the biggest guardian of the Qin family. However, the Qin family had been too smooth these years, and they didn't need this little sister to do anything at all, so everyone had forgotten her existence. In the past, Qin Sheng's mother died in a car accident. Didn't the Qin family know who the murderer was? Of course they knew. Since they knew, how could the Qin family not take revenge? Of course they had to take revenge. Therefore, Elder Long also paid the same price, and his son and daughter-in-law died tragically in a foreign land. That was the real reason why Elder Long wanted to kill Qin Sheng. He wanted the Qin family to have no descendants. That was why Elder Long wanted to kill Qin Sheng. In these years, both sides have been conserving their strength, waiting for the final battle, and finally, the Qin family would win. At this time, both of them remained silent, and no one knew what they were thinking. However, from their eyes, it could be seen that they were still staring at the Nine-Eye Bridge Bar. Maybe at this moment, Qin Sheng and Song Ruyu had already met. In the bar, Li Xiang was still singing. Gu Xining didn't come today, so Li Xiang lost a loyal fan. Even the regular customers were not used to it. After all, it was also a pleasure to see beautiful women. What a pity. Brother Chow, who was in charge of the 3rd floor, felt helpless. Li Xiang was about to leave, and he was reluctant to let him go. Because he liked Li Xiang singing, and Li Xiang had made the business on the 3rd floor better again. Many customers came to the 3rd floor for Li Xiang, and many of them were beautiful women. Although they were not as beautiful as Gu Xining, Brother Chow was not picky, as long as they were beautiful women. However, Gu Chao suddenly noticed that there was a beauty who was even more stunning than Gu Xining standing at the stairs. More importantly, this beauty's aura was too powerful, and Gu Chao didn't dare to look at her directly. He stole a few glances at her. She was too beautiful, and most importantly, she was too elegant. The beautiful woman kept staring at Li Xiang, and Brother Chow knew that she must be Li Xiang's fan, which made him feel jealous. Unfortunately, he didn't have this ability. Otherwise, he could attract so many beautiful women, and he wouldn't be single now. He had heard that many singers like to hook up with their fans, and many of them had slept with their fans. Even Li Xiang, the bastard, had hooked up with a fair, rich, and beautiful woman. It was really infuriating. Brother Chow didn't know whether it was because of the bar's business or because he wanted to get to know this beautiful woman. In the end, he braced himself and walked over. Brother Chow took the initiative and said, "Beauty, let's do it inside." At that moment, the middle-aged man standing behind the beautiful woman suddenly stopped Brother Chow, not allowing him to take another step forward. Only then did Brother Chow notice this middle-aged man. He was shocked by the middle-aged man's gaze. The middle-aged man's gaze was too sharp. Brother Chow had seen many scenes, and he knew that this beautiful woman was not an ordinary person, and this middle-aged man must be the beautiful woman's bodyguard. He could only smile bitterly and finally went back awkwardly. At this time, the beautiful woman finally moved. She took a deep breath and finally made up her mind. She walked into the bar slowly, while the middle-aged man didn't move and just observed the environment in the bar. After 3 years, this kind of reunion should only belong to them. When the beautiful woman walked in, Li Xiang didn't pay attention to her, and he just concentrated on singing. After this song, his short career as a resident singer would end. However, when the beautiful woman sat down, Li Xiang subconsciously looked at her, as if his eyes were not under his control, and there was a strong magnetic field attracting him to look at her. When he saw the beautiful woman, only for a second, Li Xiang was completely stunned, and the guitar in his hand also stopped. Time froze, and 10,000 years passed in 1 second. All the memories rushed into his mind, and Li Xiang's mind went blank. He put down the guitar uncontrollably, and under everyone's surprised gaze, he walked down the stage and slowly walked towards the beautiful woman who was sitting there and looking at him with a smile. This scene caused everyone to be somewhat dumbfounded. Brother Chow wanted to curse. "Li Xiang, what the hell are you doing? Can't you walk after seeing a beautiful woman? Why did you come over to talk to her? This is too much." However, when Brother Chow saw Li Xiang's expression, he thought, "Does Li Xiang know this beautiful woman?" Finally, Li Xiang walked in front of the beautiful woman. It was just a few steps, but he felt that it was a long distance, as if he had walked for a century or a lifetime. The beautiful woman didn't speak, and her heart was as still as water. She kept looking at him with a smile, as if looking at him like this was enough. When Li Xiang walked in front of the beautiful woman, she finally stood up, and she didn't know how to call him. Li Xiang, or Qin Sheng. After hesitating for a long time, she finally said, "Li Xiang." But the man called Li Xiang said in a deep voice, "From today on, my name is Qin Sheng." At this moment, the beautiful woman finally couldn't bear it anymore, and her tears fell like rain. His name was Qin Sheng. Her name was Song Ruyu. Chapter 1121. When would he go back? Song Ryu had been calm ever since she heard the news about Qin Sheng. She was neither sad nor happy. After all, she had been waiting for him for 3 years. 3 years passed in the blink of an eye. However, for Song Ryu, more than 1,090 days and nights were a long wait and endless yearning. She seemed to be used to such a life. She just waited quietly for Qin Sheng to come back. Song Ryu was not excited even when she saw Qin Sheng, as if what she had experienced in the past 3 years was just a dream. Qin Sheng was still the same Qin Sheng, and she was still the same Song Ryu. Song Ryu finally calmed herself down and walked into the bar slowly. She found a random seat and sat down quietly. She just wanted to listen to Qin Sheng's singing quietly. It seemed that she was satisfied. However, she didn't expect that Qin Sheng would put down his guitar and walk down after seeing her. Song Ryu was a little surprised, but she was not nervous or excited, because she didn't know whether he was Li Xiang or Qin Sheng. She knew that he had regained some of his memories, but she didn't know how much. Maybe he didn't really remember her, or maybe she was just a little familiar. So she stood up and greeted him with a smile. She called his current name so that he wouldn't be embarrassed. However, she didn't expect that he would directly say, "From now on, my name is Qin Sheng." At this moment, she couldn't hold back her tears anymore. She knew that he had completely regained his memories. Even if he hadn't regained his memories, it was all worth it since he could recognize her. What was Li Xiang thinking at this moment? No, it should be Qin Sheng thinking about something. From today on, he was Qin Sheng, not Li Xiang. Li Xiang had become a thing of the past. When Qin Sheng saw this woman whom he had been so familiar with, he felt as if all his memories had been completely reopened at that moment. Song Ryu was like the fuse that lit up his memories. All the people and things in the past came alive at that moment. He finally remembered everything. He no longer resisted and deliberately avoided it like last night, because he was Qin Sheng in the first place. This woman was Song Ryu, whom he had known since he was a child. She was his fiancée, who he had been waiting for 3 years. Qin Sheng didn't expect to see her here. He didn't expect that he would see her first. She must have suffered a lot in these 3 years. Seeing the tears of his beloved woman in front of him, Qin Sheng felt as if his heart was being cut by a knife. He gently wiped her tears and said guiltily, "I'm sorry." She held Qin Sheng's hand tightly and looked at him affectionately. She shook her head hard, as if she was saying that he didn't have to apologize. Qin Sheng did not know what to say. He could only pull her into his arms and hug her tightly, wanting to melt her into his body. From today onwards, he would never abandon her again. From today onwards, he would never abandon anyone. He was Qin Sheng. He was back. In the bar, the music had already stopped. Everyone was dumbfounded by this scene. What was going on? Everyone started guessing. The air seemed to freeze, and the atmosphere was so quiet that only the sound of breathing and heartbeat could be heard. They never expected that the lead singer would know this beautiful woman with such a strong aura, and they never expected such a scene to happen. Gradually, anyone could guess that there must be a touching story between them. Otherwise, how could they be so affectionate? Needless to say, this beautiful woman was definitely not an ordinary person. After all, some temperament could not be hidden. So who on earth was this resident singer? Was he really just an ordinary resident singer? Those familiar customers were even less likely to think so. Otherwise, why would there be a fair, rich, and beautiful woman who came to support him every day? And today, there was suddenly such a strong woman with a strong aura. If this resident singer was really just an ordinary person, how could he have interacted with these beautiful women? Everyone was thinking the same thing as Brother Chow, who was in charge of the bar. Brother Chow was stunned. What the hell was going on? Li Xiang, who on earth are you? Are you a rich kid who came here to experience life? Before, Gu Xining came to support you every day. I tolerated it when you said that you didn't know each other. Today, this beautiful woman with such a powerful aura actually came to look for you. I don't even dare to look at such a beautiful woman, but you actually hugged her. I won't believe you even if you beat me to death. You have to give me an explanation. Meeting again in a foreign place, Qin Sheng missed her. At this moment, Song Ryu had a lot to say, and Qin Sheng also had a lot of questions to ask. Therefore, it was not appropriate to stay here. After Song Ryu calmed down, Qin Sheng directly pulled her out of the bar under everyone's gaze. Standing at the door, Brother Chow was stunned. Li Xiang, what do you mean? Qin Sheng patted Brother Chow's shoulder gently and said, Brother Chow, I'll explain to you another day. Remember to put my guitar away. Brother Chow wanted to say something, but Qin Sheng had already left with Song Ryu. When Song Ryu left, she smiled and nodded to Brother Chow apologetically, which made Brother Chow feel a little awkward. In the end, Brother Chow could only curse a little. Who asked him to meet the wrong person? Now, he could only clean up the mess. Qin Sheng met the middle-aged man downstairs. It seemed that the only person who could protect Song Ruyu for 3 years was Chong Baji, a close friend who had accompanied him through life and death situations. It had been 3 years since they last met. Qin Sheng gave Chong Baji a big hug and said, "Lao Chong, it's so good to see you again." Chong Baji was more mature and experienced than before. The current Chong Baji was becoming more and more interesting. The biggest trouble was that he often encountered strange pursuers. This made Chong Baji feel a little helpless. Even many successful divorced women in Sijio City took the initiative to ask about Chong Baji. Fortunately, Song Ryu helped Chong Baji to block them. Chong Baji stared at Qin Sheng and nodded heavily. Everything was needless to say. Their friendship had gone beyond ordinary feelings. They knew each other better than anyone else. Half an hour later, in the executive suite of the Shangri-La Hotel across the street from the Juyin Bridge Bar, Qin Sheng, who had just taken a bath, stood in front of the window in a bathrobe, staring at the bright and beautiful city. Opposite the street was the Juyin Bridge Bar, where he had not stayed for long. Fate was really funny. It played such a joke on him. Maybe life was full of ups and downs. When he was Qin Sheng, he had never thought that he would experience that thing and lose his memory in the end. When he was Li Xiang, he had never thought that an ordinary person like him could have such an extraordinary background. It was like a poor loser suddenly buying a lottery ticket and winning hundreds of millions. What a fantastic story it was. However, the truth was the truth. Li Xiang was just a transition. Qin Sheng was still Qin Sheng. A few minutes later, Song Ruyu came out of the shower and saw Qin Sheng standing in front of the window in a daze. She walked over slowly and hugged Qin Sheng from behind. "What are you thinking about? It's like a dream." Qin Sheng sighed. Song Ryu leaned on Li Xiang's back and said, "Are you awake now?" Qin Sheng said calmly, "It's time to wake up. If you don't wake up now, you will never wake up again." Song Ryu said nothing. At this time, Qin Sheng asked, "How did you know that I was in Chengdu and that I was in this bar?" "Uncle told me," Song Ryu said honestly. Qin Sheng thought about it. It seemed that Uncle knew a lot. You should ask him later. "How was my father?" Qin Sheng asked after thinking for a while. He had a lot of things to know. Song Ryu didn't hide it. She said directly, "It's the final procedure. We have held 2 sessions. The verdict should be announced next month. We have fought for the best result. I hope you won't be disappointed." She was right. After all, there were many things that could not be changed no matter how hard the Song family and the Zhu family tried. Many things were destined to happen. Moreover, other people were also taking action. Those opponents were not easy to deal with. It seemed that winning or losing was not important because everyone had paid a heavy price. Even if the Qin family won, it would be a Pyrrhic victory. I can accept all the results. I also know that this is the best result. Qin Sheng could roughly guess. After all, he had already known at the beginning that the worst result would be that, and the best result would not be much better. Hearing Qin Sheng's words, Song Ruyu was relieved. Qin Sheng continued to ask, "How are my grandmother and the old master?" This was what Qin Sheng was most worried about, especially his grandmother. After all, she had been in poor health at that time. Now that 3 years had passed, he didn't know how she was doing. He was most afraid of the worst news. After all, his grandmother had waited for him for more than 20 years. It was not easy for her to come back, but this thing happened. He was afraid that his grandmother could not bear the blow. If something happened to her, he would not be able to forgive himself. Song Ryu knew that Qin Sheng was going to ask, so she didn't hide it. She said in a low voice, "Nothing. You will know when you see your grandmother." Hearing this news, Qin Sheng was both surprised and disappointed. He was surprised that his grandmother was still alive and disappointed that her condition was obviously not good. How could he not understand what Song Ryu meant? Qin Sheng continued to ask, "What about my sister?" Song Ryu shook her head and smiled bitterly. "Because you disappeared again, it took her a long time to recover. She has been focusing all her energy on work. I don't know what to say. It's all my fault. I made her worry." Qin Sheng blamed himself. Qin Sheng knew that there were many people in this world who cared about him, but the one who loved him the most was definitely his sister. Qin Sheng still had a lot of questions to ask, but he was not in a hurry. Song Ryu would tell him everything in a moment. At this time, Song Ryu took the initiative to ask, "When will you go back?" Qin Sheng hesitated for a few seconds and said, "Let's wait for a few more days. When I finish my business." Song Ryu said subconsciously, "Gu Xining." Qin Sheng was a little embarrassed when he heard this name. He said awkwardly, "You know everything, uncle?" Song Ryu said honestly. Qin Sheng really wanted to ask, "Uncle, what else do you not know?" He turned around and explained in a hurry, "Don't think too much." "I didn't think too much," Song Ryu said with a smile. Hearing Qin Sheng's words, she knew what was going on. Song Ryu was really beautiful when she smiled, which made Qin Sheng a little anxious. He stared at Song Ryu, the woman who had been his fiancée for a long time. It was a pity that he had made her wait for so long. "What's wrong?" Song Ryu asked confusedly. Qin Sheng said gently, "You are more beautiful." Song Ryu lowered her head in embarrassment. At this time, Qin Sheng pinched Song Ryu's beautiful face with his hand. He should not have made such a beautiful fiancée wait for so long. Song Ryu seemed to have guessed something and dared not to look at Qin Sheng. Her heart began to beat faster. Her breathing gradually became messy, and her cheeks became redder and redder. While she was lost in her thoughts, Qin Sheng had already kissed her lips gently. This familiar yet strange feeling directly made Song Ryu fall in love with him. She did not know what to do, nor did she need to know what to do, because Qin Sheng would guide her to enjoy this moment. She only needed to cooperate. Chapter 11:22. The best things should be saved for the most appropriate time. Nothing much happened that night. Although Qin Sheng hadn't touched a woman for 3 years, he still suppressed all other thoughts with his strong self-control. Moreover, he had just recovered all his memories. He had been asking Song Ryu about what had happened in the past 3 years, so he didn't have much time to think about other things. Qin Sheng was not a calm person. He just felt that it was a bit inappropriate for him to be like that when he and Song Ryu had just reunited. Besides, she was his fiancée. These things would happen sooner or later. Moreover, Qin Sheng had more important things to think about now. That night, Qin Sheng and Song Ryu talked for a long time until Song Ryu fell asleep unconsciously. She snuggled in Qin Sheng's arms and held him tightly, like a little woman who had no sense of security. She had been strong enough in the past 3 years. From now on, she didn't have to be so strong anymore. She didn't have to bear those pressures anymore. Because Qin Sheng was back. After Song Ryu fell asleep, Qin Sheng didn't sleep at all. He didn't know whether he was not used to the life of a single dog in the past 3 years, or he was thinking about other things. However, Qin Sheng felt comfortable smelling the light fragrance on Song Ryu's body. Moreover, it was a pleasure to hold such a beautiful woman in his arms. However, he was thinking about other things, especially those things about the Qin family. After all, it was the final moment. It was time for him to do some things. Maybe because he slept late last night. When he woke up, it was already past 9 o'clock in the morning. The beauty beside him was already gone. The sun shone on his face. If it weren't for the light fragrance, Qin Sheng would have thought that he had really had a dream. At this moment, the door of the room was opened. Song Ryu came in with some things in her hands. Seeing that Qin Sheng had woken up, she pursed her lips and smiled. "You're awake? Go wash up. I went out to buy some breakfast." Today, Song Ryu was the happiest she had been in the past 3 years. She had taken off all her masks and revealed her truest and most charming self. When she woke up and saw Qin Sheng sleeping soundly beside her, her eyes were full of smiles. She could not help but secretly kiss Qin Sheng a few times. Her eyes were full of tenderness. If others saw this domineering female director of the central office at this moment, they would probably be so shocked that their jaws would drop. They did not expect her to have such a feminine side. By the time Song Ryu put the breakfast on the table, Qin Sheng had already walked up to her, hugged her from behind, and molested her unscrupulously. Song Ryu laughed and said shyly, "Stop it. Go take a shower." After teasing Song Ryu for a while, Qin Sheng obediently went to take a bath. More than 10 minutes later, Qin Sheng and Song Ruyu sat opposite each other and had breakfast unhurriedly. Song Ruyu had bought the breakfast in an alley not far from the Shangri-La Hotel. She didn't like the standard breakfast in the hotel. Instead, she preferred to look for food in smoky places when she went to a new city. At this time, Qin Sheng asked, "How many days are you going to stay in Chengdu? Are you going to kick me out so soon?" Song Ruyu asked deliberately. Hearing this, Qin Sheng almost choked. He hurriedly replied, "Ha ha ha ha, I didn't mean that. I just wanted to ask you a question. When did you become so thoughtful?" Song Ryu laughed and said, "I'm just teasing you. I've already applied for the annual leave. I'll stay in Chengdu during this period. After I go back, I might have a new job. But I know you're busy, so you don't have to worry about me during this period. I have a lot of friends here. Maybe they can help you solve the problem as soon as possible." Qin Sheng thought it was reasonable. If Song Ryu was here, it might be easier. However, he was afraid that those people knew about Song Ryu. If they followed the clues and found out about her background, it would be a bit troublesome. But thinking about it, with their power, how would they be able to find him? After breakfast, Chang Baji came to find Qin Sheng. From him, Qin Sheng learned about the situation of those brothers. Not long after Qin Sheng's accident, Brother Wu returned to Inner Mongolia to take over. Now he was doing well in Ho-Hot. After all, he had accumulated so many resources in Siju City. With the support of the Qin family, how could he not do well? Bach had been staying in Beijing because Mr. Ding had returned to Beijing. Mr. Ding had regained control of the company under the Qin family. In this way, Zhao Anji and Qin Ran did not have to worry anymore. After all, they were really exhausted during that period. Zhao Anji began to live her old life. Other things were taken care of by Qin Changxing. She had completed her task. Therefore, Bach had been staying in Beijing, responsible for protecting Mr. Ding. Of course, he could also learn a lot from Mr. Ding. As for Hao Lei, when the things in the Qin family were almost done, he returned to Shanghai. After all, Han Bing had been in Shanghai all the time. Chang Baji said that Hao Lei and Han Bing had gotten married last year. At the wedding, they were all there. Hao Lei did not intervene in Han Bing's affairs. Shui Qingyan asked him to go to Shangshan, Ruoshui. After all, Qin Sheng had shares in it. He could continue to work for Qin Sheng. Among these people, Hao Lei had known Qin Sheng for the longest time. He could be regarded as Qin Sheng's real best friend. He had followed Qin Sheng for so many years. Naturally, the Qin family would take care of him. Therefore, Hao Lei was not only responsible for Shangshan Ruoshui, but also for some things of the Qin family in Shanghai. The big boss of the Qin family in Shanghai had retired behind the scenes. Many things were handed over to Hao Lei. Moreover, with the resources of the Zhu family and Shui Qingyan in Shanghai, Hao Lei could be regarded as a big shot in Shanghai. After coming out of the Shangri-La Hotel, Qin Sheng took a taxi back to the bookstore. He was surprised that his aunt did not call him yesterday. Could it be that his aunt already knew about his meeting with Song Ryu? Song Ryu also left the Shangri-La Hotel. She said that she was going to find sister. If anything happened, she would call Qin Sheng. When she left Chang Baji with Qin Sheng. Naturally, she was worried about Qin Sheng's safety. She did not want what happened last time to happen again. Originally, Qin Sheng insisted that Chang Baji protect Song Ryu. However, Song Ryu said that nothing would happen to her in Chengdu, which surprised Qin Sheng a little. In the end, Qin Sheng could only let Lao Chang follow him again. However, he asked Lao Chang to protect him secretly. He did not want those people to know his new identity. When Qin Sheng returned to the bookstore, he did not expect that his aunt was waiting for him there. After greeting Anning, Qin Sheng went upstairs to find his aunt. When he saw his aunt, she turned her back to him. He only heard his aunt say directly, "Have you met Ryu?" Qin Sheng was stunned for a moment. "Aunt, you know everything?" "Qin Changxing is in Chengdu. I have met him," his aunt answered truthfully. Qin Sheng did not think that his eldest uncle was also in Chengdu. Could it be that everyone already knew that he was back, and he was the only one kept in the dark? It seemed that his aunt guessed what Qin Sheng was thinking. She said softly, "At present, only Ryu and him know. I went to Beijing last time and met them." Qin Sheng nodded and fell silent. After a few seconds, Qin Sheng opened his mouth again. Aunt, who on earth are you? Now that Qin Sheng had regained his memory, he naturally wanted to know who his aunt was. After all, he could not remember who she was at all after regaining his memory. However, one thing he could be sure of was that when he had been in Ningbo, it was his aunt who had saved him at the last moment. Otherwise, he really could not remember who she was. At this moment, he saw his aunt turn around slowly and look at him with a light smile. When he saw his aunt, Qin Sheng was completely dumbfounded. This beauty in front of him did not seem to be his aunt. Although this beauty was even more beautiful than his aunt. Who was she? After a long time, Qin Sheng asked, "Who are you?" He heard that the beauty said lightly, "I am your aunt." The same voice, but a different look. Qin Sheng did not react for a long time. However, he could tell from the eyes of this beauty in front of him that this seemed to be his aunt. Qin Sheng suddenly remembered who this beauty in front of him was. He said in shock, "It's you." Aunt chuckled and said, "It seems that you remember me. You are my aunt. Did you save me at that time? How could you?" Qin Sheng became more and more confused. What on earth was going on? He heard his aunt said softly, "Don't you know the art of disguise? If I still looked like before, it would be easy for Qin Chongqing to find me. Of course, I had to change my appearance." Qin Sheng did not expect this. He shook his head and sighed bitterly. He did not know whether to laugh or cry. This puzzle was finally solved. He did not want to think so much. Qin Sheng could not help but ask, "Aunt, who on earth are you? Are you really my aunt or the Qin family's guardian family?" Aunt answered truthfully, "My surname is also Qin. I have blood relations with you. Naturally, I'm your aunt. However, I am not in the same family as you. My father and your grandfather are cousins. When I was a child, I grew up with your grandfather. My task is to secretly protect the Qin family." "I finally understand." Qin Sheng let out a long sigh. He then asked, "Aunt, what is your name?" Aunt was lost in thought. It seemed that most people had forgotten what her name was. She hesitated for a long time and slowly replied, "Qin Chongqing." Upon hearing this name, Qin Sheng could confirm that this was indeed his aunt, who was of the same generation as his big uncle and his father. However, she was younger than his big uncle and his father. Perhaps his aunt took good care of herself, or she had some special skills to preserve her looks. When Qin Sheng walked out of the bookstore, he was still a little confused. He suddenly thought of a terrible possibility. Was this really his aunt's original appearance? Seeing that Qin Sheng was in a daze, a Ning asked curiously, "Brother Li Xiang, what are you thinking about?" Qin Sheng was stunned for a few seconds. Then he remembered that a Ning was calling him. He almost forgot that he was Li Xiang. When Li Xiang walked out of the bookstore, Gu Xining was already waiting for him in a Ferrari. Today, Li Xiang wanted to meet Gu Xining's mother and uncle. Then he wanted to have a good talk with Gu Xining's uncle. Chapter 1123. If he hadn't met Gu Xining, he would have gone back to the capital city directly after meeting Song Ruyu. After all, there were still many things to deal with in Sijio City, and many people were waiting for him. However, since he had met Gu Xining and was involved in so many things, he could only help Gu Xining solve this problem. What's more, he was Qin Sheng now, not Li Xiang. For Li Xiang, these things might be difficult, but for Qin Sheng, they might not be difficult. After all, Gu Xining's uncle was only supported by Master Ma. But what was Qin Sheng's status and background? When Qin Sheng walked up to Gu Xining, he looked at the Ferrari with great interest and said, "Let me drive it." Gu Xining did not think much about it and directly threw the car key to Qin Sheng. Now, Qin Sheng had completely remembered everything in the past. He started the Ferrari skillfully and rushed out while Gu Xining screamed. Qin Sheng suddenly had the feeling of racing. It was a pity that such a sports car could not display its full potential in the city. When he returned to Beijing, he must find a sports car and go to a professional track to have a good time. Although Qin Sheng could not give full play to the Ferrari's performance in the city, he still drove the Ferrari through the traffic flow under the condition that he did not exceed the speed limit or violate the law. He could be said to be skillful and at ease. The last time they went to Mount Qin Sheng, Gu Xining thought that Li Xiang was a very stable driver. Why did he suddenly change his style and become so reckless today? The pitiful Gu Xining had no choice but to hold on tight. She kept screaming along the way. When they arrived at the destination, Gu Xining almost threw up when she got out of the car. She complained, "Li Xiang, are you crazy?" Qin Sheng took a bottle of water and handed it to Gu Xining. He didn't know whether to laugh or cry as he said, "I'm sorry. I was too engrossed in the game and forgot your feelings." Gu Xining glared at Qin Sheng, but did not say anything. She only regained her composure after drinking a few mouthfuls of water. After tidying up her clothes, she dragged Qin Sheng into the company building. This was the financial CBD of the Tianfu New District, surrounded by newly built skyscrapers. It was next to Tianfu Avenue and looked very prosperous. There was a joke in Chengdu that if there were no restrictions, Tianfu Avenue could extend all the way to the South China Sea. How big was Chengdu's ambition? If it was in the past, it would be really troublesome for Qin Sheng to find out what the Gu family did. But now that his identity was different, it was very easy for him to find out what the Gu family did. In the morning, he had asked Chang Baji to investigate. It turned out that the Gu family mainly dealt in tourism and real estate and financial investments. These few years, they have been working hard in South Sichuan. That was why they had more contact with Godfather Ma. Before Godfather Ma entered Chengdu, he had been hanging around in South Sichuan. Although Gu Jini was pressuring her, Gu Xining's mother hadn't given up yet. As the biggest shareholder, she had been working in the company, but Gu Jini hadn't come to work recently. In addition to Gu Xining's mother, Gu Xining's uncle, who had been working in Shanghai, also came back to help. He was a senior executive of a multinational company in Shanghai and had some connections. How could he not care about what had happened to his sister? From the moment they walked into the company, Gu Xining had been holding Qin Sheng's arm tightly. It seemed that she was not afraid at all. She wanted to let others know about her relationship with Qin Sheng. It could be considered as a show for her uncle. In the chairman's office on the top floor. After Xining's father passed away, her mother took over this position. In the past, her mother was only a full-time wife. Now, in order to defend the control of the company, she had to do this. However, her mother used to be the financial director of the company, so she was quite familiar with the management of the company. When Qin Sheng and Gu Xining came in, Gu Xining's mother and uncle were already waiting for them. Seeing Qin Sheng and Gu Xining come in, Min Shu smiled and stood up. "You're finally here. Why are you so slow? Your uncle and I have been waiting for more than half an hour." Gu Xining walked quickly to her mother, held her arm and said, "Mom, I had something to do. That's why I was delayed." At this time, Qin Sheng smiled and greeted Min Shu, calling her aunt. When he looked at Gu Xining's uncle, he just nodded slightly. Gu Xining's uncle was called Min Feng. He had a bachelor's degree from Sichuan University and a master's degree from Fudan University. After graduation, he stayed in Shanghai and was now the vice president of a multinational company in Greater China. When he saw Qin Sheng, he suddenly felt a little lost, as if he had seen Qin Sheng somewhere before. Min Feng stared at Qin Sheng for a while and said, "Are you Li Xiang?" Qin Sheng nodded slightly. He was Li Xiang, but also Qin Sheng. Min Feng frowned and said, "Why do I feel that I have seen you somewhere before?" Hearing that Gu Xining's uncle had been in Shanghai, Qin Sheng couldn't help but feel a little surprised. Could it be that Min Feng had really seen him in Shanghai before? At this time, Min Shu smiled and said, "Feng, do you feel a little familiar?" "Sister, indeed, I feel that I have seen him before," Min Feng said honestly. Min Shu said, "Don't you think that Li Xiang looks a lot like your brother-in-law?" After hearing this, Min Feng suddenly realized that they did look a little alike, especially between the eyebrows. He said in surprise, "No wonder. I was wondering why they looked so alike." Everyone laughed at the same time. It could only be said that Li Xiang and the Gu family were destined to be together. Min Shu, Gu Xining's mother, didn't have much opinion about Li Xiang, and she didn't despise Li Xiang because of her family background. She thought it was enough as long as her daughter liked Li Xiang, and she could tell that her daughter liked Li Xiang very much. However, Min Feng, Gu Xining's uncle, didn't think so. He had heard about Li Xiang's family background from his sister, and he always felt that Li Xiang was not good enough for his niece, no matter in age or family background. He thought that his niece was so outstanding that she must marry into a big family so that she could be happy. No matter who had this idea, it was actually for Gu Xining's sake. After Li Xiang sat down, Min Shu asked, Li Xiang, why did you want to see me today? Is there anything important? Qin Sheng said slowly, Auntie, I want to know about the matter with Gu Jiani. What do you think now? Qin Sheng directly called Gu Xining's uncle by his name. Min Shu was a little surprised. She didn't expect that Li Xiang would ask this directly. She frowned and said, Li Xiang, why do you ask this? Qin Sheng said honestly, I want to see if I can help. Hearing this, Min Feng sneered and said, Help? What can you do? Is this something that you can help with? I'm not looking down on you. It's just that these things are too far away from you, young man. Qin Sheng did not think much about it. What Min Feng said was the truth. If he was just Li Xiang, this matter was indeed too far away from him, and he could not do anything about it all. However, he was Qin Sheng now. Gu Xining didn't expect that Li Xiang was looking for her mother because of this. She stared at Li Xiang curiously. Min Shu's goodwill, he said, Li Xiang, you don't have to worry about these things. It's not something you can handle. I'm afraid of getting you involved. I heard from Cici that Gu Jiani also came to you, so you have to be careful. Auntie, I know about these things. I just want to ask you, what should we do? Qin Sheng continued to ask. Min Shu sighed helplessly and said, What can we do? Gu Jiani is too aggressive. We are no match for him. Even if Xiaofeng comes back to help, it will be useless. His background is too strong. We can only bow our heads. Auntie, I know some people who may be able to help you change the situation, but I hope you can hold on, Qin Sheng continued to say. Min Feng was amused and said, Li Xiang, do you think this is a child's play? You're just a singer in a bar. Even if you know some people, how powerful can you be? I know you're doing this for Cici, but don't be too arrogant and get yourself into trouble in the end. Qin Sheng didn't want to explain too much nonsense, and he had no time to explain these things. Annie, I want to confirm one more thing. Is Uncle really killed by Gu Jiani? Qin Sheng asked firmly. Min Shu was stunned when she heard this question. She hesitated for a long time and said, I'm not sure. Sister, if it wasn't him, who else could it be? Min Feng said. He hated this matter so much that he gnashed his teeth, but there was nothing he could do. Qin Sheng didn't say anything at this time. He knew that the Gu family wouldn't believe him. No one would believe him. He just needed to solve this problem at the end. When Qin Sheng and Gu Xining walked out of the company, Gu Xining couldn't wait to say, Li Xiang, don't worry about this. I'm afraid that my uncle will harm you. Harm me? Qin Sheng laughed and said, Maybe in the past, but now I should be afraid of him. Gu Xining was confused when she heard this. She thought that Li Xiang was really crazy. I'm going to find your uncle. What Qin Sheng said next directly made Gu Xining completely stunned. Gu Xining was stunned. She really didn't know what was wrong with Li Xiang. After Qin Sheng and Gu Xining left, in the chairman's office on the top floor, Min Shu and her brother were talking about Gu Xining and Qin Sheng. Min Feng said directly, Sister, you really don't care about this matter and let Cici mess around? Min Shu laughed and said, Why is she messing around? Sister, what's Li Xiang's status? What's Cici's status? Does she deserve him? Even if Cici wants to find a boyfriend or marry someone, she should find someone who matches her status, Min Feng said impatiently. Min Shu asked back, What status? A relative of the emperor? Besides, it's just a relationship. Since she likes Li Xiang, let her be. As long as she is happy, I will support her. As for her future marriage, I won't interfere. Anyway, as long as she is willing, I will support her. Sister, why are you so muddle-headed? Min Feng said helplessly. At this time, Min Shu suddenly said in a low voice, Feng, your brother-in-law is gone. I only have Cici left. I just want her to be happy. As for what you said, I don't care. At this time, Min Feng seemed to understand that he and his sister stood on different sides. His sister stood on the side of a mother, just when Qin Sheng went to find Gu Jiani. In a manor at the foot of Mount Qin Sheng, Song Ryu was chatting with an elegant elder sister who had been a legend in Sijio City in the past. Later, she married and moved to Chengdu. Now, she was the mother of 2 children. Chapter 1124. Mount Qingsheng was not only a summer resort in Chengdu, but also its backyard. Its environment and climate were very pleasant. Therefore, many tycoons liked to live here after they retired. Though the manor where Song Ryu lived was neither the largest nor the one with the best scenery in Mount Qingsheng, it was the most mysterious one. Outsiders were forbidden to enter the manor. A few hundred meters away from the core of the manor had been surrounded by bodyguards, who patrolled the place 24 hours a day, and all kinds of high-tech monitoring devices were everywhere. From the outermost gate to the front gate of the manor, one had to go through 3 security checkpoints. It was obvious how strict the security was. However, Song Ryu didn't go through any security check today. Instead, the hostess of the manor greeted her at the outermost gate in person. After all, Song Ryu was the only woman in the manor. The manor was divided into several areas. The hostess sat in the center area. At this time, Song Ryu was sitting in the living room, drinking tea and chatting with the hostess. Through the huge floor-to-ceiling windows in the living room, they could see the whole Mount Qingsheng. The sunlight fell through the leaves, which was very familiar. It was like returning to nature. In fact, when a manor was designed, the designer's idea was to return to nature. Therefore, the manor was integrated with Mount Qingsheng in every aspect. Song Ryu, the elder sister with an outstanding temperament, was not an ordinary person. Even when she had been in Sijio City, she had been a popular figure. Countless men had pursued her relentlessly. However, no one had expected that she would eventually marry to Chengdu. Of course, the man she had married was not an ordinary person either. Although her brother-in-law, whom she had only met several times, had retired and lived an ordinary life, he used to be a powerful figure in the underground world of Chuanyu. Many people respectfully called him Master Zhao. "Why did you suddenly come to Chengdu?" The woman asked with a smile. Song Ryu said casually, "I had some trivial matters to deal with. I happened to be on my annual leave, so I came to Chengdu to relax. I haven't seen you for a long time. You're a famous career woman now. I heard that you're going to make progress. You're really amazing," the woman said half-jokingly. Song Ryu was a little embarrassed. "Sister, where did you hear this?" "I'm not sure. If you had stayed in Beijing, I would have been no match for you. I don't have that kind of life. It's more suitable for me to be a good wife and raise my children," the woman said with a smile. Like Song Ryu, she had once chosen to be a good wife, but she had given up in the end. However, her current life was quite good. Song Ryu didn't say much. She just changed the topic and asked, "Isn't brother-in-law in Chengdu?" The woman poured some tea for Song Ryu and said, "He's not in Chengdu. He went to his hometown in Qinghai with his children. He'll be back the day after tomorrow. Then I'll treat my sister and brother-in-law to a meal at that time. I happen to need brother-in-law's help with something." Teacup chuckled. The woman was a little confused and said, "What's the matter? Can't he just tell me?" "Sister, I don't want to bother you with this. Brother-in-law is more useful," Song Ryu said honestly. The woman roughly guessed what was going on. She shook her head and said, "Okay, I won't ask anymore. You can tell him directly when the time comes." Although her husband had long stopped managing things, and she was fully responsible for his company, in some aspects his words were more useful than anyone else's. Maybe it was those things. The woman had never asked about the young master of the Qin family. Of course, she knew about the marriage between the Qin family and the Song family. She also knew about the engagement between Song Ryu and the young master of the Qin family. However, the young master of the Qin family suddenly disappeared, and there was no news of him until now. It was somewhat a pity. Song Ryu didn't leave the manor. Recently, she had been living in the manor. However, she didn't want to disturb her sister's life. After all, she still had work to do. After all, she was the helmsman of the largest private enterprise in Sichuan. The new landmark buildings in Chengdu were all built by her sister. Sometimes, she envied her brother-in-law, who didn't need to worry about anything. His wife was responsible for everything, and he became a hands-off boss who only cared about enjoying life every day. Maybe only a successful man could be like this. Therefore, Song Ryu had long turned a blind eye to some things. She was not as generous as her sister, but she was not as stingy either. Otherwise, when she knew that Lin Su, who was far away in the United States, had already given birth to Qin Sheng's child, she might have directly broken down. Moreover, Lin Su was not Qin Sheng's only woman. Thinking of this, Song Ryu felt somewhat uncomfortable and couldn't help but mutter a few words. At this moment, Qin Sheng, who was on his way to Lushan International Community, inexplicably spray-painted a few times. He muttered, "Who's scolding me?" At this time, Gu Xining was absent-minded. She said again, "Li Xiang, are you really going to find my uncle? We're almost at the door. Do you think it's fake?" Qin Sheng didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Of course, he knew what Gu Xining was worried about. He had to comfort her. "In a while, you wait outside. I'll go in directly. If I don't come out within an hour, you can directly call the police." How about that? Gu Xining wouldn't let Li Xiang take the risk alone. She insisted, "No, I have to go in with you." Qin Sheng found it funny and said, "It's useless for you to go in. You will also delay things. Don't worry. I'm just going to have a good talk with your uncle. Don't think too much." Gu Xining was still dubious. She had a feeling that Qin Sheng might be crazy today. Qin Sheng tried hard to explain again and again. Finally, Gu Xining believed that he was not crazy and that he really wanted to talk to her uncle. 10 minutes later, Gu Xining and Qin Sheng arrived at the door of Gu Jinny's villa. This was Lushan International. It was the most expensive villa area in the community. The starting price of the cheapest villa was a small target. Gu Jinny's villa was worth 2 small targets. It could be seen how rich the Gu family was. Qin Sheng didn't let Gu Xining get out of the car. Instead, he got out of the car alone and walked into the villa. Gu Xining had already told her uncle that she and Li Xiang were coming, so no one stopped Li Xiang. They just went through a simple security check. When Qin Sheng was taken into the villa, Gu Jinny was listening to the symphony in the living room. This surprised Qin Sheng a little. He didn't know whether this boss really liked music or was pretending to be elegant. At this time, Gu Jinny saw him, but he didn't see Gu Xining. Gu Jinny frowned and said, "Why is it only you? Where's Cece?" Qin Sheng said honestly, "I wanted to see you. I just used her as an excuse. Otherwise, you wouldn't have met me." Gu Jinny heard Li Xiang's words and thought about it. He didn't expect that Li Xiang would take the initiative to come to him. He hadn't made trouble for Li Xiang yet, but Li Xiang took the initiative to come to him. "Oh, then why are you looking for me? I'm a little busy. If you have something to say, just say it." Gu Jinny sat on the sofa casually and said with some disdain. In his eyes, Li Xiang was not qualified to sit in front of him. Qin Sheng sat directly in front of Gu Jinny in a very domineering manner. He even picked up an apple and ate it. He said, "Uncle Gu, sometimes you have to be conscientious. They're your sister-in-law and niece. Is it fun to be so aggressive?" Hearing this, Gu Jinny's face changed instantly. He directly stared at Li Xiang and said, "Li Xiang, you are seeking death." Qin Sheng laughed and said, "Uncle Gu, only you are allowed to do it. Others are not allowed to say it. These are all done by you. How can you deny it? Li Xiang, who on earth are you? Who gave you the courage to be so arrogant in front of me?" Gu Jinny was a little annoyed. Qin Sheng shook his head and said, "Uncle Gu, I don't have any identity. I'm just me. If you really think that I have an identity, you can investigate it. Anyway, didn't you test me? Sure enough, you did it." Gu Jinny frowned and said. Qin Sheng didn't understand what was going on. He was too lazy to think about it. He just said, "Uncle Gu, don't be too greedy. What you have today is all thanks to your brother. Your brother has passed away now, but you forced your sister-in-law and niece to sell their shares. This is not how you should be. Li Xiang, aren't you afraid of death?" Gu Jinny had restrained himself enough. He didn't expect that Li Xiang would dare to say these words. Qin Sheng was very disdainful as he bit the apple and said, "Of course I am. Who is not afraid of death? I have also died several times. It's just that I am lucky." "Oh, It seems that Uncle Gu wants my life. That's right. Uncle Gu is so powerful that you can take my life easily. Besides, you even dare to kill your own brother. What is there that you don't dare to do? After Qin Shang finished this sentence, Gu Jianyi was already trembling with anger. His eyes could kill Qin Shang in seconds. He suddenly stood up and shouted directly, "Take him down for me." You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.